Hello, welcome back. Today I am joined by Aiden here to my right. Aiden, what army are we talking about today?
We're talking about Nurgle's chosen sons, the pestilent followers of Nurgle himself, the Death Guard.
Yes. So you are known for mainly is it the disgustingly resilient podcast?
Yeah, so I'm Aiden. Hi everyone. I run the Disgusting Resilient podcast on YouTube, which is basically just a fully dedicated paid YouTube channel to Death Guard, sort of focusing on more gameplay than lore. We don't tend to do like lore videos and stuff, but it's more like gameplay, competitive advice. We are on the more competitive end of things, but we do still. I don't just run the same list every time. I like to try fluffy, fun things as well. So calm down. Please don't kill me.
Don't hate him. So yeah,
Don't hate me.
like all the other videos in the series, I'll put links down to his channel down below, or we'll use YouTube collab or something. It's entirely up to him. We'll sort that out after the video. So we've had a mix of different people on in the past. We've had like people that are more competitively minded and people that play more casually. So I like having a bit of both. But for the most part, a lot of people who are more competitively minded, where they like to do a lot of coaching and stuff, for the most part, haven't been on. So it's been quite interesting to have you on, I think. So when did you start playing Death Guard?
So I played Death Guard back when they were just Green Chaos Space Marines. So Death Guard only became into existence as its own actual standalone army in 8th edition. So prior to that, you basically would just paint your Chaos Space Marines green, maybe pick up Typhus and a couple of squads of Plague Marines, because that's all that existed, and then slap a mark of Nurgle on absolutely everything. So it was like a 10-point tax on everything by default, just to represent. And then basically, when 8th edition came out and Death Guard became its own range, its own models, and obviously Mortarian and stuff came out, that's when I sort of went full down the rabbit hole, got rid of all the generics Chaos Space Marine stuff, and just went full in on the sort of the pestilential train. I did do demons at the same time, but again, Nurgle demons mainly. So it just kind of went together, and yeah, that's kind of where it all just went from. So as soon as 8th edition came out, the full corruption of Nurgle took over, and that was about it really. Forever lost to the warp, I guess, in Nurgle's garden.
Yeah, it's been uphill or downhill from there, I suppose.
It's a weird one. I know obviously the series of this is like everything wrong with like X Army. But weirdly, I was just gonna be one of the weird ones where like this is the best Death Guard has ever been. Like Death Guard is normally like there used to be a meme in competitive like multiple channels where it was on the tier list, it was D for Death Guard, because Death Guard is everything that is makes a bad army bad. It's like it's slow, they didn't hit very hard, all this like stuff, and everyone's always like, "Oh, movement wins games of Warhammer," and it's like, "Cool, you picked the slowest army possible, nice one." And now we've actually got like an actual codex. So it was 2 editions sort of on the struggle bus, but we're on the upturn, but we stick for it through thick and thin because we got to be resilient. Got to be disgustingly resilient, as we like to say.
Yeah, I mean, so the series as a whole isn't necessarily. I mean, for those of you who are new to the series from your channel, hi. I do a lot of these with various people, but for the most part, it's more so been like just critiquing the things that are wrong within even like the good stuff, and also pointing out the good stuff, because that's always fun to learn and see people be passionate about stuff. Like I've had videos where people are like, "I love this army. It's so fluffy. It's so cool." But yeah, so I mean, from the sounds of it, the next question usually is, what's it like in comparison to previous editions?
I mean, yeah, as I stated there, really, Death Guard is in the best sort of position it's been, both competitive and I think in terms of like gameplay wise. Maybe not the most in terms of representing fluff. I'll say the biggest elephant in the room was Death Guard's identity has really changed for the last few editions. So we used to basically just be the slow, tanky army, and that was it. We didn't do much damage. We had no tricks, no nothing, and we just basically was like, hey, you either can't kill us and we win, or that, or we get run over. That's about it. Whereas the same sort of continued over into 8th and 9th edition, because in 8th edition, everything pretty much had feel no pain. Now, as you can imagine, that's a lot of dice rolling added to a game when we treat every single model as feel no pain. So GW was like, okay, we're gonna change that. And then when 9th edition rolled around, they removed the feel no pain from most things, but they gave us army wide -1 damage taken, just like permanently. Everything was -1 damage, which is both good and bad. It was really good because there are instances where you come across some armies like Custodes who were just like, most of their output is just damage to melee, and you were just like, cool. So just by pure luck of matchup, you just took a 50% damage loss. Unlucky lad, which was really good for us. But then you run into matchups where like it was like Adamek, for example, who just spammed you with a metric ton of damage one shots, in which case -1 damage doesn't tend to do much. It literally does nothing at all. So it was a bit like, oh, okay, I guess that doesn't do anything there. Then same with Eldar, all spamming shuriken weapons and things like that. So it was very feast or famine. Like you'll have some games where you came across someone and you felt like an absolute god and you just couldn't die because all the damage was halved and you were like, wahaha. And then you have other instances where you, like I said, being spammed by -1, or you ran into something like Knights where it's like, oh, cool, I've got -1 damage. What's the damage of that weapon again? He's like, oh, it's just flat 8 damage. And you're like, yeah, that's not really going to help me there, is it? So yeah, they changed us again. We've had real turbulent time of it. They changed us again coming into this edition, and let's just say 10th edition launch Death Guard was probably the worst army I've ever experienced. It was really bad. And fun fact, it's kind of where the channel came from in terms of our end, because when indexes came out for Death Guard, well, indexes came out for this edition in general. I don't know if you were playing during the launch of these indexes, but there was a bit of a power discrepancy, shall we say, between some of the armies. We had armies like Eldar, who were basically killing everyone by like turn 2 with Wraith Knights and spilling over devastating wounds and all this stuff. And on the flip side, you had Death Guard, which basically, I remember because I've always played Death Guard, so I was sat here and I was watching like Art of War and stuff like that, trying to like see what like the best players in the world's opinion on the army was, and they basically spent the hour just laughing about how bad it was, and I was like, oh man, that's not great, and it was bad. So we'd lost -1 damage army wide, that had just gone. We didn't have Feel No Pain, so all of the durability had just gone. Our durability was from being 1 toughness higher than a Space Marine. That is it. So if you were a Space Marine was T4, a Plague Marine was T5, and like that was about it. And it didn't really help us, and we were still slow, and we dealt pretty much negative damage. And we have our contagion auras, but back on index launch, all he did was give -1 toughness. Now -1 toughness is good, but this was also the edition when they expanded toughness brackets out a lot more. It used to be like 8 was like a really tough thing back then. So -1 toughness in that was actually a bit more impactful. But now getting something from like T11 to T10 or T10 to T9, it didn't really make much difference so much of our output. So it was kind of like only worked against infantry, and that was about it. So it wasn't great. Combined with our points were really high, not much did anything, and Death Guard came out to a resounding, I think it was 32% win rate. But because I say I'll play this army, whether it's on top of the game or the bottom of the game, I took it to a 5-round GT near us, and this is in the middle of like Wraith Knight dominance and all the knights with the tower and stuff. And I managed to go 5-0 with it and get second place. And this was actually, I don't know if you ever heard of toilet dice?
Yes, there was this big thing at the event, wasn't there? As people found the weighted dice in
That
the
was
toilet.
the event.
Right.
That was the event. So yeah, one of the Eldar players was using a lovely set of weighted dice, which then he tried to flush down the toilet. But again, lead plus water does not easy to flush away. So toilet dice got caught, and the toilet dice was all his opponents that he beat were retroactively basically flipped their score around to be like 100-0. And that 100-0 actually ended up costing me first place.
Oh.
So I actually ended up getting second. So there was 2 undefeated players, an Eldar player, which everyone was like, yep, okay, fair enough. And then I was in second with Death Guard. Now, I didn't go against Toilet Dice, so I actually won legitimately all 5 of my games as well. So, but obviously nothing against the person who won the tournament. He obviously is the victim of a cheating thing. It was the best. The TO was in a rough situation. They did the best they could do, which is to just wipe the score out and hand 100-0. I don't hold anything against it. But that kind of like got out, and I posted it on the Facebook page and stuff, and people wanted to like have like chats about it. And at that point, we'd already been doing the podcast, but it was literally just a black and white piece of artwork with me and one of my co-hosts, Will, just talking about Death Guard. And now people were like, please, can you like tell us how to make this not great army into something like playable? So I made a video with just me sat, very bad quality, terrible microphone. As you know, when you start off, everything is you cobble it together and the best you can. Nothing was edited, just me in the corner and a display capture going on, and talked through it. And then people sort of like jumped on it and was like, hey, this is really good, could you like do some more breakdown videos? And then I just started getting into making videos, and then the channel started like growing and expanding from there. And yeah, it was weird to see like Death Guard, even though it's been this weak faction, has a fairly loyal player base of people that want to make it work. I think it's something to do with Nurgle. People just really like Nurgle. I'm not sure what it says about us as a race, but people really seem to like the pestilence aspect of it. And there was a lot of people wanting to get into it. So then, as it basically went forward from there, we finally got some buffs that brought us up to, sort of like a playable standard. And then I got to sort of just ride the wave of hype that came from that. As the army got better, we got new contagions added in. Our point costs all got dropped. So now our contagions did extra things like giving people -1 ballistic skill and weapon skill, -1 save. Now we're actually doing a load of damage, and it was like really really fun because people. I always find one of the fun things is people always like when you're playing a bad army, people sort of just expect like an easy win because I always say I think people pay way too much attention to like tier lists and meta. Even if I make like a Death Guard tier list, like don't pay attention to it genuinely. It's just what I think, but it doesn't mean it's true. And I had so many people like they play against it and they just like absolutely show me no respect and they just run at me and then I managed to like kill a bunch of them. They're just like, wait, what? And I was like, yeah, you like I know my army's not good, but you can't just like disrespect it that hard.
Yeah, I mean,
it was just quite funny.
Sorry, I mean, if anything evidences this before you move on to the next thing, like it's the recent thing with Folger, showing top 4 Imperial agents at Adepticon. It's like if you're good enough at an army, and I mean, that's not even necessarily because he's that good at that army. He's just that good of a player. At least from my knowledge of him.
Yeah, 100%, and like it just proves that like you could if you got if you got dedication, and obviously Fogger's got way more dedication than I have. Like I like to like there's like the pro level and there's like your average Joe, and I like to sit somewhere sort of like being in between, but I get the advantage of just playing one faction, so I've got pretty good at it. So I'm like in between somewhere. So it was nice to sort of like prove a bit of people like wrong on the internet and be like, hey, this army can still be playable. It wasn't easy. I remember calling it like playing Dark Souls Warhammer. Like every single army was just you heard the orchestra music, the enemy health bar appeared, and you were like, great, here we go, time to sweat against absolutely everything. On the bright side, it made me much better as a player because I didn't have get out of jail free cards of playing a really strong army. Like every mistake cost me an entire game, so it got me pretty good at the game at one point. Then as we moved forward and Death Guard got better as an army, I started slipping in standards a little bit because the army was carrying a bit of work there. So yeah,
on that particular vein, actually, I think it's really interesting, that idea of taking something that's really bad and trying it and just making your fundamentals better. This is something I've actually talked to Paul is bad at stuff before about, because I've been joking for a while that I would want to try and get him to play Imperial agents, just because quite often the reason he loses games when he does lose games is because he's messed up scoring. So just play an army that is only scoring.
Yeah, I mean that's basically what I mean. Mine, the list that was working for me was the most degenerate thing, which was just, as you said, that focus on scoring and then 3 plague burst crawls for indirect.
Oh, no.
Just be scumbag.
No,
so it was, yes, I know, and I put Mortarian near it because Mortarian used to have an aura of ignore on modifiers, and this is back at the start of the edition where that was like, cool, now I can indirect hit you on 2s and then ignore
that ignores the indirect penalty. Oh, yeah, that's disgusting.
it was vile. And then Mortarian also had an aura of reroll 1s to wound, so it's like, cool, so now I ignore all that, I reroll 1s to wound, you can't armor contempt it, you can't minus damage it, minus wound hit anything. It was stupid. It was really stupid, but. And again, just focused on scoring the fundamentals. So it's like, look, I can't stop this. There's no chance I can kill this 10-man shield guard custodian squad that's trying to barrel through my lines. So I'm just going to put waves of 10 cultists in front of it and move block it for the entire game and just focus on outscoring it. So like literally, you get to the end of the game and like my entire army is like battered on the floor, like splattered like a cartoon villain. But scoreboard numbers say I win. so
some of you will die, but it's a sacrifice I'm willing to make.
Oh, I mean I'm 5'7" as well, so I am literally Lord Farquaad in that one. So I was more than happy to send waves and waves of my own men to their deaths.
That's a Futurama reference, isn't it?
Yes, Zach Brannigan, yes. But yeah, I mean it works, and like there is something to be said when you play. The cool thing about playing the army at that time as well, and it's weird in sort of comparison to like how it was when the book came out, which we'll get to in a sec, which is
Mm.
because the army was really like not good, and there was no expectations on me to do well or to feel any pressure. So if I went into a game and you beat the Death Guard player, like, congrats, you beat the Death Guard
Right.
player. But if I beat you, if I beat you, Meta Chaser man, you're gonna remember
It's
this.
like, oh.
Yeah, so that was always like the fun part of it for me, because it was like I've got nothing to lose, I've got nothing to prove. I'm just here playing this silly army, and thankfully it wasn't just a one-hit flame. We managed to go to Leeds Super Major, the UKTC event. We went 4-1 at that. At the same, again, this is before all the buffs came in, so I lost by 3 points to a GSC player, and it all came down to a final charge. He had to make a 8-inch charge, and he'd win the game. If he didn't make it, I won the game, and he couldn't CP reroll either. And I had a Plague Burst crawler with Overwatch ready with the flamers. So he came out to make the charge. There's only 5 models in the squad. I double wand the flamer shots.
Oh no.
Killed 2 of them, and then all the other guns missed. I'm like, cool, go for it. And he rolled the 8 and he got it, and I was like, that's the game. But
Yeah.
that's a fun game. Like,
Nice
that's
game.
how it should be. Like, so the dice game at the end of the day, you can't be too mad, because there'd be times when I've banged a 12-inch charge when I had no right to and won a game off that. So you can't be mad.
I guess.
But yeah.
I guess before you move on to the codex, so I guess for context, I started towards the end of 9th, start of 10th, and like my initial reaction to the new Nurgle army rule was very much, I thought it was a very interesting concept, but it obviously wasn't strong enough at the time. Like, I think, looking at the previous version, and you mentioned the -1 damage and the very durable thing, in my mind I go, okay, this is like sort of a chaos equivalent to something like Custodes, which doesn't feel like different enough almost, which might have been the approach Games Workshop was taking with it. Like, it doesn't feel like a unique thing because there's another army somewhere else that kind of already does that.
Yeah, I mean, we have been told that we're the Rustodies of chaos, and I actually agree with that. I feel like, and I know it's very divisive. It's like Marmite, this entire topic.
Mm.
There are people that still to this day want feel no pain back, want -1 damage back. But I've always said, like, as you said, then the new rule is much more dynamic. It's much more thematic. It's much more like, Death Guard seems to be more focused, and I want to lead even further into this, into the sort of the debilitation aspects of Nurgle rather than the durability aspects. Because I've always said as well, when it comes to durability, there are only 2 states that exist in the game. One, you are durable enough, and everyone hates fighting against you because you just don't die, and you can just win by stat checking someone, which is where you just basically just stand in the middle of the board and go, "You can't kill me," which is not skillful. It's not a display of skill. It's just, you are overstatted, undercosted, and the opponent's armies don't have enough damage output to deal with you. And the second option is the opposite is true, where the game's lethality has outpaced your durability, and now your durability is worth really nothing because the damage in the game is so high, which we saw at the end of 8th and 9th edition, where the damage was so crazy high. Like, you could put a full brick of 10 Blightlord Terminators who are supposed to be, Nurgle Terminators, that get picked up in a single activation. Like, all that toughness, all that -1 damage didn't mean anything at the end of the day. So I think moving away from that, I understand why people were upset about it. Obviously, people get into Death Guard because they want to be, I think there's a big break from the lore in terms of that, because people read the books and there's like guys, getting hit by auto cannons, guys even taking like a las cannon to the shoulder and just not caring, just being like, cool, nice hole, mate, I'm going to keep walking towards you. And then they put them on the tabletop, and this is honestly one of the biggest things I have when I'm trying to teach people to play Death Guard, especially currently, is a lot of Death Guard players see this, read this, and try to reenact it on the board, and it just doesn't work. Like, you will die. And I feel like that causes a bit of someone to be like, this army sucks, it doesn't even play like it's supposed to. But again, I feel like the way they've gone with the new rule now, where it leans into more, again, like you said, being near people debilitates them. There's other things in our book that, we can slow people down, we can give them worse hit rolls, things like that. Literally rusting people's armor just because you're being near them. And it allows Death Guard to be this sort of almost like still have the higher toughness than normal, but you're not super tough. You're still killable, which makes it still fun for the enemy. But a lot of the dice rolls are like one off the normal. So, like a bolter into a Marine's normally a 4 to wound, whereas into Death Guard it's a 5 to wound. And it's that incremental value over the game that makes that attrition warfare still come through. But it does mean you can't just be silly and put something out there and expect it to not, take damage. And it makes this board control playstyle where you're basically, trying to manage your contagion range to make sure you can get things in contagion, because that sets up stuff like Death Shroud, Deep Striking 6 inches away. All your damage from -1 save and -1 toughness combinations. You have stratagems that key off it's called the afflicted keyword, which is just someone being inside the aura. So there's all these different things that sort of play off it and have additional effects. And I just feel it added from what was originally a kind of, and I love Death Guard, but I will say, like, Death Guard, it was kind of boring to play. You kind of just walked forward, was tough. The end. Whereas now, like, you have the mini game of like managing contagion ranges. Or am I going to bring in the reserves? Am I going to send out those poxwalkers to buy me time, or do I want to keep them back so next turn they can move out with an advance and try and spread contagion into the middle of my opponent's army to set up for something? You got a lot more choices now, and I feel like it's far more fun and thematic. And I want them to lean into it even further. Because I follow Age of Sigmar as well, and I feel like the Maggotkin rules in there from like the last edition book was really fun. Whereas like every hit roll of a 6, you put like a plague token next to a unit. So if I shot your guys, for example, and got 5 6s to hit, I'd put 5 tokens next to unit, and in your command phase, I'd roll dice equal to the tokens, and every 4 up you take a mortal wound. So just the idea of you, like, the sickness taking its toll on you over time and sort of being this sort of attrition based damage over time debilitation army, I think is far cooler than where we used to be, which was just a -1 damage or the feel no pain guys. So I do agree with your assessment on that one, because I don't just want to be Chaos Custodes, because if I wanted to play Custodes, I'd just play Custodes.
Yeah, I think from an outside perspective, I think it's nice if the army has the option to skew that kind of high toughness durability thing, and maybe there should be a detachment for that if there isn't already. I don't actually remember. But because that makes for good things for like teams format, for example, or if you want to take a skew list to like a local event, and that sort of still plays into that. But like you were saying, like the stat check thing being the default way to play it, you sort of end up in the scenario we had recently with Catan.
Yeah. Recently, I don't know if it's ended.
Oh, yeah, we'll find out about that one, I suppose. Is 15 points a model enough? Is the question. But I guess it's the second lot of 15 points a model. It went up again.
It's 10, then 15, so 25 points. Is that it's like deal or no deal for Catan? Is it 25 points enough to break this unit and make it fine? Let's find out. So, yeah, you are right though on that one, and it's I feel like there are detachments that do let you build into durability a little bit. So Champions of Contagion, for example, has like +2 toughness for a unit. So you can get toughness 9 Terminators, which is kind of crazy. And you still have tough units. You've got toughness 12 Demon Princes, toughness 12 Mortarian. So I feel like there is a bit there, but it's not just it's not just brain dead. Here's like 18 Death Shroud all with 5 up feel no pain, -1 damage all the time. Good luck trying to get through that. It is, you still have to, even our defensive leaning in abilities are limited to stratagem, so it's one place a turn and that's it. So you have to still, even with that, still be aware where you're using that in the turn, rather than just being like flat out. We're playing against Dark Angels with like 15 Deathwing Knights. It's just like, cool, there's 5 squads of 4 wound Terminators with a -1 damage permanently. That's annoying to deal with.
Yeah, it can be. I was wondering if they'd ever make a -1 to wound detachment for this in that kind of vein, because it's a good way to buff up durability without it being feel no pain. Because like you were saying earlier, having to roll feel no pain for every single model is very tedious, especially when someone goes like, "Here's a damage 2 weapon." You're like, "Oh my god."
Yeah, when you've got a squad of 20 poxwalkers and you get hit by a bunch of damage to you, like, here we go. It's like, let's do this. Let's start rolling. But no, I think the one thing as well that is, this is a slight chip on my shoulder here, is I 100% understood GW when they first came out and was like, hey, we want to get rid of all these feel no pain rolls and things like that. And I was like, okay, fair enough. Speed up the game. That's fine. The problem, however, is as the edition's gone on, one of my friends was playing on stream the other day against a Blood Angels army, which had some of the new Sanguinary Priests inside Blade Guard veteran squads.
Oh yeah.
He gives them a 5 up feel no pain.
Yeah, he does.
And then the rest of his army was Death Company, which all have a 6 up feel no pain. And his opponent is playing Death Guard, who had 1 source of feel no pain in his entire list. And he's just like, what's happened here? It's like, how have you got all the feel no pain? And I'm stood here with none. So I feel like maybe they went a little too far. Like, it'd be nice to have it. Like, we don't even have a single strat in the book to give a unit feel no pain on demand, which I find like I find that crazy to just like not have a single feel no pain. We have a single enhancement in a single detachment, which will always go on a Demon Prince every single time. But outside of that, there is no way to give something feel no pain in the entire Death Guard Codex, which is a bit bizarre if you ask me. Because although I say before, like I said, I like the debilitation aspect, and I don't want to just be the feel no pain guys. I do feel like there is a big sort of like mental connection to feel no pain and Nurgle as like just a thing together. It's kind of like their rule in a way, and to
Yeah.
see it almost everywhere except on Death Guard and Nurgle models at the moment is a bit of a strange experience.
I guess maybe what you'd want then is like in the future version of this would be like that to be like your armor of contempt, more or less.
Yeah,
But then you
yeah.
keep the sort of army rule identity of the plague thing. When you were talking about the plague, a part of me was like, is there like a way to spread the plague? Like if a thing dies, it spreads to something else, but that's not really how it works right now.
So there is one unit that has that rule, but unfortunately, it's a very good unit. I forget the rule exists because it doesn't do anything. It's the heavy blight launcher drones with the the bloat drones with the big gun on them, which is a really good gun. But you have to kill a unit with it, not a model. And then once the unit is dead, you have to roll a dice, and on a 5-up, a model nearby becomes in contagion range. And it's like
Okay,
it's yeah, but I mean,
that's very specific.
yeah, and half the time the things you're shooting anyway, you've probably got them in contagion range to kill it in the first place. So, like spreading it like that tiny way doesn't, and again, it doesn't do anything. Like I've shot, someone puts something in the middle objective, they've got tons of things behind the wall on the other side. It's like I
Mm.
don't even bother rolling it because yeah, I could put them in contagion range, but it doesn't actually do anything because it's going to wear off in your turn, and I'm not going to be able to shoot you or charge you because I haven't got any line of sight. So it just never really plays. Whereas, like you said, if there was some way for it to have like, there is one detachment which I think is very fun, which is in your opponent's turn, anything that's in contagion, and it's one of these not strong but fun detachments called Death Lord's Chosen, and for every enemy unit that's contagion, you roll 2 dice, and you have to get a 7 down, which I don't know why. It's a 7 down, not a 7 up.
Interesting.
Uh, yeah, really weird. They take D3 mortal wounds, which is very fun to just be like, I've left your tank on 1 wound, but it's in contagion. Here comes the 7 down.
Oh no.
So it's very funny when it happens, especially if then it explodes as well and does a bunch more mortals. That becomes very funny. But outside of detachment, there's nothing really that like works like that, and I always feel like there's a little bit of a flavor miss there, a little bit of a flavor miss.
I'll be honest, I played against that card quite a lot, especially when it was particularly good. I didn't realize that blood drone had that rule because no one ever uses
That's what I
it.
mean. Even I don't use it. We shoot it, and then there's been like one time when it's came up because I think I shot something, and it was a really weird match. I was against like Catan and Wraiths, and I don't
Mm.
take -1 save because everything's got fours to hit. Sorry, 4-up invulnerables. I took -1 OC, -1 leadership, and it came up because I had to shoot something. I killed the Doomsday Arc. Then I noticed that the squad of Wraiths next to it was equal OC to my, like, I think it was Poxwalk or something on the point. And if it spread contagion to them, it would put them -1 OC, which would
Oh,
then let me score Storm, which is like the most niche thing ever to ever come up. And then I was just like, I was figuring it out. I was like, that's how it works, right? And my opponent was just like, I think. And we're like, yeah. And so then we got it, and I was like, cool. I've used the rule once in about 100 games. So
we
yeah,
did it.
very, as you can imagine, it's a very good rule.
I guess speaking of the army rule though, because it changed quite a bit from the index to the codex, if I recall. You wanted to get onto the codex, but we sort of sidetracked a bit
Yes.
there.
Yes, I am the master of side drop. I
Oh, that's fine. It
apologize
happens
for
all the time. We've
everyone
had
of
some of
viewers.
these go over like 2.5 hours in recording time.
So Codex eventually comes out. We get a dual release with World Eaters. I actually got to write the article for Warcom for this, which was really cool.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so I got a preview copy sent to me, which is both like the coolest and the scariest thing ever, because I'm like, you feel like you're walking around with a briefcase, like, when you handcuff it to your hand, it's like no one can know. And then you're obviously trying to not like slip just because you're excited, because it's hard when you're excited about something and you're talking to your friends. You don't want to be like, oh yeah, but in the new codex, like, death shroud of 4 wounds, but you don't mean to like say you just accidentally like scared you're gonna blow it out, so you just like zip completely, just pretend it doesn't exist. So yeah, the book obviously comes out, and Death Guard get a huge glow up, a massive glow up. So our army rule, actually was in the index days was still just -1 toughness, and then they added the -1 save, -1 ballistic skill, and -1 OC to the detachment rule,
Mm.
which was really weird because when the Grotmus detachment came out, it was rubbish because you're not going to give up those amazing contagion bonuses. So in the codex, they thankfully rolled those bonuses into the army rule itself. So now, no matter what detachment you picked, you're always going to get the choice pre-game to pick your contagion to have -1 save, -1 to hit. It was changed to from ballistic skill weapon skill. This was to stop the rather feels bad and the weird thing of this edition where it's like hit rolls can't stack, but ballistic skill modifiers and hit roll modifiers can stack.
Yeah.
Simplified, not simple, right?
I guess it's because like if you shoot a tank with it and then they smoke, it's like I'm now hitting on sixes.
Yeah, yeah. So that got changed now to just be a hit roll to make it a bit fairer because it was very unfair against melee armies who literally couldn't avoid it. You've got to run into contagion, so you just
Mm.
had some Nurglings or something nearby, or Typhus who was -1 to hit, and now you've got Space Marines hitting on 5s, which is really funny. It's just like cool, you're now Tau in combat, which was very unfair. So that got fixed. But then obviously our entire army basically I think we were like one of the few codexes where every unit got completely rewritten from the ground up in terms of rules because our index was very poor. So a lot of the armies that came out from index to codexes had some of the lesser played, lesser used units rewritten, but some of the stronger ones either just minor changes to like a wording or something, or they just kind of stayed the same and maybe had a profile update on like a gun, for example. Everything else was just basically thrown in a fire and just rebuilt from the ground up. All of our units' rules changed. Our army-wide like toughness all went up by 1. So the average standard now is Death Guard is 2 higher than the average. So Plague Marines are T6 rather than T4. Our Terminators are T7, and these are actually far more impactful breakpoints as well in the game. So that was really cool to see that we got all these like changes. And then as I got this book and I'm reading through it, I had the horrible realization of you start reading it, you go, oh my god, this is really good. This is really good. Okay, this is really, really good.
Uh
Oh no. Uh-oh, this is too good. Stop. Stop. And
oh.
then
Wait, go back.
yeah, and then I was like, okay, these rules are really, really good. These rules are really I'm like, you close the codex, you're like, whew, take a breather for a second. These rules are amazing. But as always, points make everything. It doesn't matter how good a unit is. If 5 Plague Marines is 500 points, it's unplayable. And then I got sent a PDF with the points in, and then I opened them, and then my jaw hit the desk, and I was like, "No, this has got to be a mistake. This has got to be a mistake." It was very, very, shall we say, aggressively pointed. And I don't know if this was just a hangover from them being like a poor index. So they were like, well, if indexed, Death Shroud were like 110 points, surely like Codex, now we've upgraded them, maybe that should be like 10 points. I mean, it fixed Catan's, right? So, so yeah, everything came out and it was all very undercosted and all did really, really well. And unfortunately, GW also did the thing that they love to do, which is they got our Plague Burst crawlers, indirect, that
Yeah.
favorite keyword. And the one thing that kind of made Plague Burst crawlers like kind of fair in the index is we had a stratagem where you pick an enemy unit that's in contagion range. So that means you've got up to them and put them in contagion. And then you could use a stratagem and your Plague Burst crawler could ignore cover. So it's quite nice. It's quite nice. Ignore cover, indirect, pretty good. So then but the Plague Burst Crawl's rule was terrible. It just made someone take a battle shock test, which, as we know, doesn't really do anything. So then the new codex comes out. The Plague Burst Crawler's got its rule updated, so now it does it when it hits someone, you roll a dice for them and everyone else within 6 inches of them, and on a 5 up they take D3 mortal wounds. Now it's only a 6 up if they're not in if the original unit's not in contagion, but if it is in contagion, it's a 5 up. So you shoot the indirect and then you splash mortal wounds all around it. That's pretty good. Now bear in mind you can take 3 of these. So that's 3 chances to splash mortal wounds. Now, it's fine. It's fine because they're not in contagion. Because we're a slow army. Your guys hide in the back of your deployment zone. They're not in contagion range. You're all good. Then Games Workshop printed a detachment called Mortarian's Hammer. Now, Mortarian's Hammer, what it lets you do is at the start of the turn, pick 2 enemy units wherever they are on the board. They're in contagion range. So, you basically was just like, okay,
Oops.
cool. Start of the round, that one, die. He's shot indirect at them and killed them. And this is again 3 plague bus crawls was like 600 points. He still had 1,400 points of undercosted things. And there was another unit called Death Shroud Terminators, which can deep strike 6 inches away rather than 9 from anything that's in contagion range and still charge. So now you could also just go, oh, that one, and then just appear 6 and charge instantly. So all of the skill aspects of managing contagion range and setting yourself up on that board control playstyle, just throw it in the bin. You don't need it. Just pick 2 units and just go for it. just go for it. This led to a very degenerate playstyle that came out when the book came out, and this was unfortunate at the same time that Knights had their sort of pseudo rework where they got a bunch more wounds and they went down toughness and they became very strong, and then Death Guard was showing up being very strong, so we came into this weird meta where the game was dominated by Death Guard and Knights of both kinds, and it wasn't very enjoyable for anyone. It was pretty grim. Now I refuse to play the Mortarian's hammer build. I'm a man of substance. Okay, I genuinely refuse to play it. I never took it to a tournament once. I still haven't played it to today. Now, don't worry, it's nerfed today, so it's fine now. But I've always found myself not wanting to play what is meta. I don't know what it is. Not the armies being meta, but the specific list. Oh yeah, I'm a hipster. To be fair, I play hipster classes on MMOs and everything. I'm just like, what's the least played class? And I'm just like, that'll be me.
Yeah, I definitely didn't start making YouTube content on Imperial Agents.
Exactly, the super popular army.
Yeah, super popular. How it is. It came top 4 at Adepticon.
Easy. So when the book came out, my initial thing was I made basically a challenge to myself when the book came out, which is the every detachment challenge, which was the goal was to either win an RTT or go 4-1 at a super major with every single detachment in that book. We have done all of them, par Mortarian's hammer, because I've left it till last because I don't like it because it doesn't play very fun. So the whole point was to prove that you don't just have to play what was like the strong thing, and you could play all these other things, because I genuinely think the Death Guard Codex is one of the best sort of like internally like a lot of people say that the internal balance isn't good, but I get very confused whenever I hear that, because I have proved the point. You can play any detachment. The zombie horde one was great fun, love that list. Played the demons detachment, that is absolutely slept on. It is probably the most busted thing I've ever played in that book. Virulent Vectorium is just, hey, you're brand new to the army, you want to play a bit of something that's just got a bit of everything, a bit of a toolbox, that's great. Champions of Contagion is the funniest thing ever. If you're listening right now, viewer, and you are new to the game, and you've got that friend that likes to show up with an Imperial Knight at 500 points because he's that kind of good friend, and you really want to just show him what kind of damage output can slay a god, play Champions of Contagion, take 6 Death Shroud, a lot of Contagion, save up 3 command points, and Control-Alt-Delete that knight from existence. It's very funny. But yeah, it was just fun to sort of play all these different types of things, because everything was so viable in the book. But the weird thing is, and I don't know if you've ever had this, like the perception still carried over from the index, even though it's a completely different book now. I still hear people saying like, "Oh, Blight Lords are trash. Just take Death Shroud." Blight Lords are amazing. They just serve a different purpose. I've took 10 Blight Lords and absolutely smashed people with them. But it's so hard to like shake like a reputation of just being the bad Terminator and all these kind of like weird things that I've carried over from there. And yeah, to have the Codex come out in the state it was, and the nerfs we only got were only to points as well. Like we only got some points nerfs, and it still is doing well today. It's on the weaker end at the moment in terms of win rate, but I do think that's because our bad matchups are kind of like at the top of the game at the moment. Necrons being one of them. That is not something because again, we're not an army that does. We like that one detachment can kill Necrons. The problem is that detachment with the infinite damage struggles into anything that's like scory. It doesn't do that well against there. So you can ruin a Necron player's day, but you'll lose all your other games. So Death Guard's win rate is kind of low on the lower end at the moment. But to say that is no reflection on like the state of the army as it currently is, because it is in a really, really like good space. There's just certain armies on top of the game which are lead to come down a little bit. But honestly, like when the book came out, and since then, Death Guard players have been eating really good. I consistently do list reviews and get tons of different attachments being submitted in, and it's really nice to not just be like, oh, you shouldn't really be playing this attachment. No, it's just cool. Let's make it work. Because I genuinely have found them all to be competitively viable. Like, obviously, you got to set your expectations. Like, I mean, well, you say that, and Folger went with Imperial Agents to Worlds and still almost sorry to Adepticon and almost took that entire thing down. But if you're not a Folger Piles, you still set your expectations. You're not taking the strongest thing. Maybe you aim for a 2-1 at your RTT
Yeah.
or a 4-1. But it's all very viable. You'll never just show up to a table and be like, you've auto lost because you've brought Death Guard anymore, which is a big change from how it used to be.
Yeah, I mean, so I have a couple of thoughts here because there was a few different things you touched on there. I guess the internal balance thing is interesting because, like, I was looking through the list of units in the army as well because that's another, I guess, measure of internal balance. And I'd say like at least like 80% of them are like solid. Like, there's very few in this army that I don't think I've seen, even if like for meme reasons. Like prior to the new data sheet, I would have said the defiler is one I didn't see very often, but I definitely have ran into someone playing 3 of the old defiler just because they thought it was funny.
Yeah, there are some, but there are some stingers. The Defiler was one of them. I mean, to be honest, it wasn't necessarily the Defiler itself's fault. Like, you look at its points and its stats, it's actually all right. The problem is the giant 160mm pie plate of a base, and it can't walk through walls like it can now in the new one.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
It just couldn't go anywhere. But there are some stinkers. Like the Plague Surgeon is. So if there was one thing, if there was something wrong with Death Guard, it's the Plague Surgeon, because I don't know if you've got his sheet up there and you can look at it. So if I say to you, don't look.
Oh,
If I say Plague Surgeon, okay? If I say Plague Surgeon, what do you think a Plague Surgeon should be doing?
Probably respawn the model.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. Do you think you should do anything else on top of that?
Based on what you were saying earlier, I would have said feel no pain, but maybe that would have been overkill.
That, and everyone in the world thought that. Now, please read his rule that isn't the resurrecting. He does resurrect a Plague Marine, I'll give him that. But please read his other rule and then explain to me why that exists.
Start a 5-phase, select an enemy unit within engagement range of this model. That's very specific. To the end of the phase, each time this model makes an attack that targets that unit, you crit 5s? Crit 4s? What?
But just for him, not the squad.
Oh, just hit him.
Just for him.
Wait, why?
Why? What?
That's a funny rule, but interesting.
He's got 4 attacks. I don't get why this exists. Because the worst bit is, you can take a character called a Biologist Putrefier, who's in every single list, because he gives the entire squad crit 5s always.
Yeah, but I was reading that. That's what I assumed this was. That's why I assumed it was the entire squad, because I know that Plague Marine bricks quite often have crit 5s.
Yeah, so I thought when I first read it, when I got the book, I was like, oh my god, this guy's like, he's like a melee-only Biologist Putrefier, but it's crit 4s instead of crit 5s the entire squad. I was like, that's broken. And then my mate, who was reviewing it with me, Dave, on the channel, because he got it as well, don't worry, share it with anyone else, GW. He was like, Aiden, reread it. And I was like, what? He was like, this model. I was like, why? I was so confused. So, yeah, I just make him be a sanguinary priest. That's all I want. Make him be a sanguinary priest and I'll be happy.
Honestly, the even more insulting part of that rule is he can't even use it with his bolt pistol.
Yeah, it's just, I don't understand. Like, I don't understand the logic of it. What is he like? Does he like analyze a guy and he's like cut there and there and there because he's a surgeon? He's like that. Why?
I guess.
I don't get it. So he's never been good. And then there's like, I don't know. There's a few things like our Predator Annihilator is also the worst Predator Annihilator, and it's never been great, but it was better it was one of the only units that got worse from index to codex, because in the index it was a standard Predator Annihilator. It had reroll wound roll and reroll the damage roll against any vehicles and monsters, which for a tank full of las cannons is serviceable, isn't it? It's fine. It's fine. It's not great, but it'll do. And then they reworked it to, after you've shot a vehicle or a monster, if you've hit it, roll a dice. On a 5-up, it takes D3 mortal wounds. I'd rather just have the rerolls, please. Can I just have the old rules back? Like, the las cannons kind of want to, kill the thing, not leave it on like 1 wound, and then kill it with a 5-up mortal wounds.
Yeah, that's odd.
It's just a bit confusing. But they were really the only stinkers. We have a running joke on our channel about the terrain piece, but terrain's its own thing. I'm sure we all would love to make terrain actually do something. Ours is unfortunately the same as everyone else's, which is pretty much unplayable.
I completely forgot you had one, to be honest.
Yeah, it's the plague bong, as we like to call it.
Plague bomb, the miasmic malignifier.
Yeah, the miasmic malignifier with
Incredible.
its strength 3 auto cannon thing. Flamer. I don't even know what it is anymore. It's
Was it 2d6 3 strength 3 flamer?
yeah,
Sure.
with a really bad range as well.
I suppose it could be worse. At least you guys still have yours. Eldar seem to have lost theirs. They got rid of the webway gate.
Oh yeah. Oh my, I forgot that used to be a thing. The webway
Yeah.
gate. Oh good lord.
So at least you still
Yeah.
have one to meme over.
True. It'll make a very nice. You know what the worst bit is? It has you can't deep strike within 12 of it, but it has no OC, so you can't even like just put it on your home objective and leave it there. It's just like, oh, I guess it exists. So we have.
I guess you could
Well,
sticky it first and then just leave it there.
True. That would be that's like the best thing you can do. But it's also like 115 points or something like that. It's not
105, yeah.
105. Yeah, it's a bit like you put a 50-point taliban on that instead and just generate CP all game rather than a massive terrain piece. But beggars can't be choosers. At least we have a model, I suppose. But part of that though, there's genuinely not that many stinkers in there. There's obviously, there's choices that are better than others, as there isn't anything. But outside of that,
stinkers is a choice of words.
yeah, quite. I suppose does that be the positive thing for us? Would a stinker be a good
There's
one?
either a lot of stinkers or not many stinkers, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah, and we obviously got mortarian, the biggest stinker there is. Who's actually become really cool. I do think Morty is very, very cool model now. He's a very strange Primarch. A lot of Primarchs just have a pick 3 abilities and it's like an aura of this for whatever it is this turn. Whereas Morty's in an army that's normally not very reactive. All of Mortarian's abilities are reactive. Like you use them as like they're almost like trap cards. Like from if you watch Yu-Gi-Oh back in the day, it's like, haha, you've activated my trap card. He's got a reactive move. He's got a shoot back after you've just been shot. It'd be really funny if we just got a big demon engine with massive amount of guns on it recently, which would really like that rule. That would be crazy.
Actually, I would love to get your thoughts on this actually, because I actually have no idea how good or bad the Death Guard Defiler is. Because I've talked to people on almost not on YouTube, but like in general on all the other ones, and I can kind of gauge where they go. But just knowing that the Death Guard one strips cover and is slower than the other ones, I don't know if it's good or not. Or is it the same speed?
The worry was it would be slower. It's not slower.
It's not slower.
But it's not it's not tougher either though. So it was like, I'll take that trade off. That's fine. Like I would rather be T11 move 12 than T12 move 10. Movement is just too important. It's actually really good. Basically, the rule on it is okay. Stripping cover is pretty good. The problem is really you kind of want to strip cover for the defiler. it wants to ignore cover, not strip it after it shot something. So you kind of want to like have a pair. But you got to remember we do have -1 save contagion, so all the guns on it are basically +1 AP all the time on things you want to really kill. Because if you want to kill something, you'll bake it being contagion. So that's pretty good. It has an absolute metric ton of shots. Every single weapon has lethal on it now, which none of the other ones do. Which means that even the weird little chest guns with 12 shots on them at damage 2, like with lethal, they can like hit up pretty hard. It's a really solid shooting platform that basically Mortarian's ability to shoot back at something after you've been shot at us. The biggest problem it has is that you have to declare it before you've been shot at. So, well, when you declare it when you're targeted. So, which means that if you pick a bloat drone and then they kill the bloat drone, you've still used your ability and you don't get to shoot back because your bloat drone is dead.
Yeah, because it's one of those weird abilities where it's technically an aura, but you pick a thing, isn't it? It's very odd.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they target your bloat drone, you go, my bloat drone, after you've done shooting, is going to shoot you back. And then they one-shot the bloat drone, you go, damn. Because the bloat drone only has 10 wounds, it's only toughness 9, it's not very durable. And the worst bit is, again, if you shoot back with a bloat drone, it's got 1 gun with D6 plus 2 shots. You know you're going to roll a 1 every time. So it's very risky to use it on that, whereas the reactive move was always good. So you pretty much Mortarian either just use 2 up fight on death or reactive move. No one ever used the shoot back. The defilers now give you a legitimate reason to shoot back. It's T11 with 18 wounds. Very unlikely it gets one tapped by all except the hardest hitting units in the game. and because of the amount of guns it's got, because again, you can go chest cannon, or double auto cannon, or double las cannons. That's 4 las cannon shots, D6 strength 12 shots in the chest, and then 12 nipple guns for lethal hits. And you just go, cool. I hope you one shot this thing, because if you don't, I'm just going to shoot you back with absolutely everything. And it has the amount of guns where it genuinely might just kill whatever just shot it. So, a repulsor or a gladiator lancer, for example, has two very good shots. You have an invulnerable as well in the defiler.
Yeah.
If you bounce one of them, you're not dying. And I think even if they get through both of them, they have to roll a 4 on each dice to one-shot it, because it's 18 wounds, which is ridiculous. Sorry, they have to roll 5 on each dice, which again is unlikely. And then after they've shot it, again, you could just bounce the invuln. You could even CP roll the invuln. You go, cool, I'm just going to now shoot you back with, here's 4 las cannons, a d6 shots at strength 12, AP 3, flat 3 damage, and then 12 more nipple gun shots, and they're all lethal hits as well. And there's a good chance whatever just shot you also dies. And that's not a very common rule in the game. So I think it brings a unique thing to Death Guard now, where there's this big, walking around gunboat, and because it's got claws as well. The funny thing is, you think, oh, I won't shoot it then. I'll just charge it and kill it in melee. But Mortarian's other ability is 2-up fight on death. So now it's like, how do you approach this thing? If I shoot it, it shoots me back. If I charge it, it fights on death. So it's this.
Just kill it in one animation.
Yeah, I mean that is literally the only way you get through it. But then what happens if I then bring -1 damage strategy into play, or -1 to hit and things like that? It becomes a lot harder for you to gauge, can you reliably one shot it, unless you're Marines and you go oath, here's 6 eradicators. But at that point, why are the eradicators near your defiler? You outrange them. So it's not good because of its rule. Its rule is okay. The cool thing is you can shoot one of the chest guns off somewhere that you don't really care and just strip cover there, and all the guns go into the thing you actually want to kill. They're good in pairs because obviously they can strip cover for each other, but the main thing is it adds this weird unit to Death Guard, which is hard to approach for armies, because if you don't one-shot it, it shoots you back. If you charge it in melee, it'll fight on death or get a mortar heroic or something like that. And it's got enough durability that one-shotting it is a risque prospect. So it is good, but it's not good when it's not good in the sense, like, you look at the CSM one, you're like, this thing can get 4 rolls to wound. Like, that's just obvious to everyone. That you go packs, you give it sustained 5s from Mark and Nurgle, you put a Hellbrute near it, now it's lethal, sustained, crit 5s, full rerolls to hit him with. Like, that's obvious. Like, everyone knows that's going to do silly damage. Whereas ours is more like that, just that weird uniqueness. And again, in Death Guard, which doesn't have many tricks, to get an army that then a unit in there which can make use of the few tricks that we do have I know it sounds weird, this, but as being like because we have like obviously our big Discord community for Discussing Resilient podcast, but people, regardless of it being competitive, I do think it's going to be competitive. Regardless of that, people are just excited to play the thing because it's just different.
Yeah,
It's cool. It looks awesome. That's why I'm excited, and I get to do the cool thing with Mortarians. I never got to do it before, so I am eagerly awaiting the first time some little elf steps out with a fire dragon, shoots me, it doesn't kill me. I'm like, ha! Prepare to die, and just kill the entire squad back. So I think that's kind of what's making it so fun and exciting for us. Is just we haven't had a new model. Like, we had a new character come out with the codex, which, to be honest, he's okay.
He's neat. The model's nice, but
yeah, the model's really nice. I won't lie, the model is really, really nice. But part of that, he didn't add much to the army.
No.
He just was just a guy you put in a squad if you wanted someone melee output, pretty much. But this is like a unit that's actually, because it's expensive as well. It's like you build around the defiler, you build the Morty. I don't know if I don't know what the age rated channel is, but there's a double defiler with Mortarian walk list called Morty got double D's.
Oh my god! No, you're fine. People have said much worse on here before. I remember when I had the Emperor's Children episode, we were talking about how Games Workshop probably doesn't like Emperor's Children having a predator because it would be called the Children Predator.
Oh, God. Okay, yeah, I'm fine then. I'm all good. So yeah, it's an exciting breath of fresh air for us as Death Guard players, because it changes how we build our lists, and it's just a unit that we didn't really have before, because it's just a giant walking tank with guns and claws. Like, what's not to love?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't reading it for the Death Guard one. I wasn't too sure how transformative it would be, because I know Death Guard has quite, I'd say, extensive compared to the other legions, like range of vehicles. compared to the others, because everyone else sort of just has the the predators, the forge fiends, smaller fiends, whereas you guys have
Yeah.
all the plague related vehicles. So I wasn't sure whether or not that filled a hole or not, or whether it just sort of opens maybe a slight new avenue, which it sounds like it is with the whole, I guess, castle approach with mortarian and stuff. And I'll be interested to see if that does well competitively. I guess the other benefit, or not benefit, depending on how you view it, is that it's the largest base size possible to have your plague radius.
Yeah, it is. It's a double-edged sword. Don't get me wrong. But being able to spread contagion from a 160mm pie plate is both good and bad. Obviously, it's hard to maneuver, but if you get it somewhere, you can literally cover an objective. Like, you physically can't stand on the objective while you're on it, which is pretty funny. So, a lot of the times, people, they'll have a big scary vehicle, but its biggest weakness is like 3 guardsmen just touching the objective at OC like 4 each or something these days. You don't have that problem because they can't physically touch what they can't get to.
Yeah, I think
So
I was talking to people about this one. Is I think you can't walk onto it, but you can charge onto it because it's like less than an inch from the base
so
size.
they can charge into it, but thankfully they've also given our little defiler sweep attacks now, because it didn't used to have sweep attacks. So now you can sweep away those guardsmen quite nicely, and you can also even take the weird electro scourge thing that probably makes an Emperor's Children player smile.
Yeah,
because that's got like sustain 2 and stuff like that. If you wanted some more melee.
Yeah, I think the average children problem there is a lot of people look at it and go, "Ooh, that looks fun with coterie crit 5s," and then they look at it again and go, "But we need the las cannons. We don't have any shooting."
Yeah, I'm interested to see what they do with actually Emperor's Children, because I think the same thing. I think they're just dying for las cannons, so it's probably just gonna be a las cannon bot. But it would be very funny to just see a melee. But do Emperor's Children need more melee? It's like World Eaters, and it's like, do they need more melee? I think that's again the same thing for them. I think they're probably just gonna whack some guns on it, and just be.
I think the consensus I've seen is probably 2 las cannons plus the plasma chest gun plus the 12 shot thing, and you just run it as a big beefy thing. You can walk out and get some early coterie stacks.
Yeah, because it's like I say, it's not the easiest thing to kill back with. It's 18 wounds involved in a T11. It's a chunky little thing. Little's probably the wrong word. It's a chunky big thing, real big.
Okay, I'm not sure if there's something I missed that I want to touch on, but I'm sure I'll remember it if we come back to it. Usually I go through some of the detachments. You've sort of touched on a little bit. Which one was the index one again? I know it's changed since the codex came out, but
the closest one to index is virulent vectorium. It's quite different, but the detachment rule is the exact same, which is sticky objectives army wide, which is, to be fair, really hard to deal with when you haven't got them anymore. Like, you go to play a different detachment and then you forget you've not got sticky and you're like, oh, this really sucks. And you realize like how good sticky objectives actually is. And especially became really funny because obviously we got poxwalkers gained infiltrate in the codex. You're able to infiltrate. Like, I've had a giant conga line of poxwalkers across 2 objectives. I get first turn, they instantly become stickied. You just move in advance and move block the entire opponent's arm, and you're like, cool, that's a 315 points for me. There's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, I've had that. So for a while I was playing AdMech, and I've had scenarios happen where I wasn't playing any of the flying units. That happened, and then turn 2 or 3 drops the death shroud 6 inches away and makes a 12-inch charge into my backline. I'm like, oh, the game's over.
Yeah, you're like, oh, yeah, this is going to be unpleasant for the next 4 turns. So yeah, I think VV is just a great starting place for Death Guard to sort of start with. You get -1 damage stratagem as well, which are kind of, again, as you were saying before, like having like a generic army wide stratagem like AOC. I thought. And this is one thing that would confuse me. When they announced AOC being every Marine detachment, I thought that's where they were going to go with the addition. Like, every army would have like one strat that doesn't change between detachments. Like, their signature strat. And I thought that would be disgustingly resilient for us, which is the -1 damage. But it's not. It's only in Virulent Vectorium, which does suck when you don't have access to it in the other ones, but it does make it very good. It also gives you the enhancement to give something a 5-up feel no pain, which can be put on a Demon Prince, which is toughness 12, 2-up save for vulnerable, who has been affectionately named Mini Mortarian because he is just Mortarian with 6 less wounds. So very often they run together as well. So you have Morty and his son. It's like, don't talk to me or my son ever again. So that's become like a build. Like VV just has a metric ton of builds you can do with it. You can go really top heavy with Morty Demon Prince. I've done minimum size units of Plague Marine spam. So I've had like 6 5-man Plague Marine squads just running around, spending a CP for 4-year-olds to hit and wound and shooting, just trading everywhere. And it does all sorts of good things. Like you can even do like a bit of a jail, with the Poxwalkers, sticky up turn 1, move up, then drop the Death Shroud and keep them fighting in their own deployment basically all game. It's just really solid. And I think it's probably where if anyone was to get into Death Guard and didn't have a set idea of what they want to do in mind, because obviously some people get into an army because they really like a unit. Like if you get into an army, you're like, man, I just want to run zombies. Well, obviously, I'm going to probably recommend the zombie detachment for you. But but if you didn't have that in mind and you just wanted to I don't know, I just think Death Guard are cool. Virulent Vector would be where I'd point people to because it just does give you that suite of abilities to sort of cover every sort of scenario. And it lets you bring some smash characters because it's got some great weapon enhancements. It's got the really tough guy with the Demon Prince and Mortarian's best in there. You've got good damage output and you got a bit of defense with that -1 damage. So it is genuinely like just the go-to all-rounder for Death Guard, and it's never been bad. It's never been has it been the best? It's debatable. Like Mortarian's hammer was more oppressive than it because it had the more degenerate playstyle that was easier to get success out of. But VV has always been there as your sort of like it is your salt and pepper chicken. It is your it's your toast and butter. It is there,
Your
reliable.
vanilla ice cream, if you will.
Yeah, it's your vanilla ice cream. Like, yeah, is it fancy? Not really, no. But everyone likes a bit of scoop of vanilla, don't they? So yeah, VV's always been where I'd point to people first. And then if you want that spice, that's where you go into the other detachments from there, really. So
I guess.
go on.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay. I guess before we move on to the other ones, is there anything here you wish was different or adjusted, like going forward, or is it all like this is like what I would want all the time?
Boil Blight, my beloved. So the Boil Blight was the stratagem that was in the index, and it was one of the only ones that didn't make it out alive. It was the one where you pick an enemy unit that's in contagion range, and you basically strip cover from it. And it was so good. It was so good, and I miss it so much because cover is now there is outside of the defiler, there is no way to ignore cover in our entire army, and I would really like to be able to ignore cover for the defiler without having a second defiler. So, but it used to make things like predators. The indirect was made better by it, and again, it was just being able to ignore cover in an army that also has -1 save contagion. It kind of it. I get why they probably don't want us to have it because it did get to points where I had Plague Marines hop out of a Rhino and Boil Blight at AP4 Plasma against 20 Berserkers. At that point, it's just dev wounds.
Yeah, that's
just straight up dev wounds. It's just here's 6 plasma shots with 4 rolls to hit and wound, crit 5s, lethal sustained. I rolled every single. It was against Vanguard. It's actually on their channel on the live stream.
Oh dear.
And poor Stephen Box got hit by 6 plasma shots, ended in 12, just basically dev wounds, just 12 dead Khorne Berserkers off the rip before any of that was 3 models that shot out of 10-man squad, killed 12 Berserkers with no save allowed at all.
Oh, no.
And then the rest killed the entire squad. I was like, yeah, that's probably why we shouldn't be ignoring cover because I caught you out of cover and you got no save and just died instantly. So I get it, but I do miss it daily. It was I think one of the best stratagems in there, and I long for its return one day. But part of that though, I would swap out the reroll all shot amounts for that one. Rerolling all shot amounts against the target is pretty good if you've got a bunch of flamers and just need to guarantee you get a bunch of shots. But it's a bit niche because the problem is you have to spend it before you shoot. So you'll line up a bloat drone, and unless you've got like 3 lined up at a target, which isn't that common, you can always just spend a normal command point to reroll one of them anyway. So, and I've done it before. I've spent it, and then I've go to roll my shots on my bloat drones, and I'm like 5, 5, 6. I'm like, great. I literally use that for nothing because they already naturally rolled good. So that would probably be one I'd swap in and out for there. But part of that though, great detachment.
Yeah, that's a bit odd actually. It was very like, how often are you firing 3 bloat drones at one thing?
Exactly, unless your opponent's made a big mistake. Like the only times that ever happens is you're against like knights where there's only like 5 things to aim at anyway. So you all try and focus one down at a time. But again, even then, there's better ways to use the CP really.
It's probably be more interesting if it was something like reroll damage rolls. So like you firing like D6 damage guns, that would be a bit more interesting maybe.
Yeah, that would make me a lot happier because then again you can just be like, okay, cool. So because rerolling your shot amount's nice, but at least at that point, it would be when the damage is actually being dealt. Because you could roll high, you could roll low shots, re-roll into high shots, and still do no damage. At least, like, you know, if it gets through, I'm gonna not roll a one, because that is the worst feeling in the world. When you sneak two last cannons through and you roll double one, you're like, cool.
Poor damage.
Yum yum yum.
But yeah, no, it's nice to see that this is like a good catch-all. Like I wouldn't say it's like a Gladius or anything, but it kind of has that beginner-friendly vibe, I suppose, to a degree.
Yeah, 100%. It's definitely the most approachable.
Because I think a big complaint I've had from people on this series so far for a couple of armies has been our index sucked because the detachment we got given was locked to a certain keyword within the army, and that's obviously not really the case here. It's very generic, which is good.
Yeah, the only thing that's locked is the reroll all hits and wounds with shooting to infantry, but it's not just one infantry, it's any infantry, which is, to be fair, yeah, it's completely fair, because it's one command point as well. Like, imagine that on the new defiler, just be like one command point, reroll literally everything. Might be a little much.
Yeah, like, I guess to give an example, like when I was talking to Skari for Drakari, their index was the one that forced you to take all three branches of the army. And a lot of people were like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to have to buy these models. I don't own them.
Yeah, I do feel like I feel like you're fine to make those attachments in addition to like a detachment that has like you covered for all your bases. But when that was like your only one, it feels really bad because you're just like, cool, now go buy the things you're not interested in. It's like, but Master GW, I don't want to do that.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to scroll down the page, and I guess we can just go through the detachments in the order they just appear on here. So we very briefly touched on Mortarian's hammer.
Yes, the degenerate playstyle one, which has been fixed since, not through any change. This is the one bit that annoyed me. So the entire degenerate playstyle was made by the rule of that you're just picking things and putting in contagion, because it just takes away all skill, all ability for your opponent to counterplay it. Because normally you can obviously measure your range plus your opponent's movement and stay out of that range, so avoid contagion. Whereas if I can just go that and that, there's no like what's your counterplay to that one and that one. There's not much. So when they were going to do the nerfs, my initial hope was that they nerfed that part of it and just changed it to a complete different rule or something like that. Instead, what they did is they took my beloved Plague Burst Crawler and sent him to the big farm in the sky. That tank is now 210 points each for D6 plus 3 shots at strength 8 AP 1/2 damage. Long may he. He was 160 points back in the index. I want him to come back because I used to run like bumper cars with the flamers and drive them aggressively, because it was fun and they were quite tanky. Whereas now they are just way too expensive to make work. Basically, everything that was in the Mortarian's hammer list got its points increased, and that list went up something like 500 points, which is not something a list can survive. So now hammer exists, and the problem is, hammer is it's a bit of a noob trap at the moment. A lot of people still think hammer is really good, and it's actually really bad. The only thing that was making it good was the degenerate sort of playstyle they've been undercosted. But outside of that, its stratagems are okay at best. Its army rule is only good if you bought Plague Burst Crawls, which, as we just said, are way too expensive to reliably field in the numbers you need them to get results. So a lot of people pick it because they go, oh, I can just pick and put stuff in contagion. It reads like that. It's just dead easy to do. Whereas what you're actually doing there is you're not letting yourself have the opportunity to learn how to play the army, properly with contagion, rage management, the board control playstyle. You're basically given crutches, which, if you're trying to get better as a player, is not the way to go. Is to not play on crutches. And even then, outside of that, it's just okay. There's not really great things going for it. The stratagems are, like I said, okay at best. Like, there's some okay ones. Like, there's one to let it like something advance and shoot. So 18-inch moving defiler and shooting through walls, pretty funny. And that's kind of interesting to try out. But it just, compared to other vehicle detachments, it's just not really there. To be honest, it doesn't have, like other vehicle detachments have assault on every single tank, whereas we get to put it on one for a command point. And yeah, without the indirect, because the thing is, the contagion where you pick for the indirect was really powerful because obviously you couldn't reach things with the indirect. Whereas now, because you can only shoot what you can see because the PVCs are too expensive, often the things that your opponent's letting you see, you can probably just walk into contagion range of anyway.
Yeah.
So the detachment rule quite literally doesn't really do anything anymore.
Yeah, like if I were to see someone make this now, I feel like it would have an extra line below it that said like vehicles have +1 to hit against units that are afflicted or something.
Yeah, something like that, just to make it a bit more rewarding for the vehicles, because you read the detachment ability, and it's supposed to be the vehicle attachment. When you read that ability, you're like, what does this have to do with vehicles? Like outside of the plague bus crawl, this doesn't help anyone really. So I would much rather it just be vehicles get to do X, like you said, +1 to hit, or even if it's like ignores cover versus things, it can take just anything to just make them a bit more viable. But yeah, it's probably the worst attachment right now in my opinion, and it still gets so many people playing it. I'll never understand it. I guess people just like tanks, but
Yeah,
I've always been more of an infantry person anyway. So
like as much as I'm not a fan of indirect as a rule, I think people very much like their artillery, like from like
yeah,
a
there is
thematic
something to be said
perspective.
from it,
Yeah.
but it is so bad for game balance. It's so bad.
Yeah. Like I'm sure there's a way to make it work and not be horrible. I've seen people suggest previously making the indirect always hit on sixes or something, but then it just feels like it's probably
Yeah.
just gonna be bad. But like,
Yeah, I went to a tournament in teams, and I got paired against a Dark Eldar player, and I was like, "This is back in the index, so this is when it was even more degenerate,
oh
hitting
no.
indirect on twos." And I was like, "Okay, this is my army." I explained it to him, and he's like, "This is my army. I've got 3 squads of scourges with dark lances." I was like, "Cool." I was like, "Oh, reserves," and I was like, I'm just gonna keep all my stuff on the board. I'll put 1 squad of Death Shroud in reserves." My opponent was like, "I'm gonna keep it on the board," and I was like,
Oh.
"Are you sure?" And he was like, "Yeah, it's fine." I was like, I motioned my hand towards the plague bus scroll. I was like, "You are seeing this, correct?" And he was like, "Yeah, it'll be fine." Spoiler alert, it was
It
not
was not
fine.
fine.
Killed all 3 squads turn one. He was just like,
Yeah.
"Ah!" I was like,
My anti
I was,
tank.
I was very confused. I was like, I just explained to you this. I was like, but I'm
If
not
it,
going to complain.
if it isn't the consequences of my actions.
Literally, oh no, the consequences of my own actions. He was not. He should have seen his captain's face when he went over and told him he got 20 0'd in like 30 minutes. He was not happy, bunny. I was like, you can explain to him that you left them on the board.
Oh dear. I think the other part of this I would love them to see them go back and revisit is I wish enhancements did more for vehicles. Like they've kind of explored weird
Mm,
enhancements recently, like the Corsairs and stuff, and like the Catan enhancements and stuff, and putting enhancements on things that can't usually take them is maybe an interesting approach for this kind of detachment would be to go, you can give these 2 vehicles or something like
yeah,
that.
even if it was like select 1 vehicle in your army, it gains the character keyword and then the following ability. So it
Yeah.
still gives up like assassinate and stuff. So it's like a command vehicle. Because I mean, we got the new cool Imperial Guard thing with the woman on top of like the
Yes.
suit. So is it called a centaur or something? I can't remember what the name of it is.
Something like that, yeah.
Um, something like that, some armored thing with a woman on top going, "Hell yeah, drive me forward." So like
Drive me closer
I'd
so
be
I can
game
hit
for
them with my sword.
literally the age old meme. So I'd be happy with something like that. That would be very fun. And like you said, I do think that would be much cooler for vehicle based attachments. Just be like, "Hey guys," because it always feels weird, especially if someone just wants to play tanks, to be like, "Where's your compulsory infantry headquarter unit?" It's like I
Yeah.
don't want to.
Like, there's a bunch of like bad vehicles attachments in certain codexes that I've covered previously, and a lot of the time you look at the enhancements and it's like Tech Marine, Tech Marine, Tech Marine, Tech Marine.
hmm It's like, guys, I don't want to spam Tech Marines, please. Just let me do anything but Warp Smith only. It's like, cool, it's a bad Tech
Oh,
Marine.
I think it was the Thousand Suns one where I was talking to the Amber King about it. I think it was and in that one the vehicle detachment has some interesting rules, but all the enhancements are like one part of the Space Marine Tech Marine rule. Like one of them's low knock, one of them's +1 to hit, one of
Yeah.
them's the heal. It's like oh
It's like you can become half of a Tech Marine for 30 points.
yeah, just what we wanted.
Yay.
But yeah, there's definitely things to improve here. Any last thoughts on Mortarian's hammer before I go to the next one?
No, Hammer.
Well, you're gonna
Rewrite
have
that
to play it be a
detachment.
challenge.
Yeah, I know it's my next one. I've probably got. I'm hoping the defilers make it more fun. I just want to see a defiler move 18 and stare at an elf and be like, "Guess who's fast now, boy?"
Oh god. The only other thing I noticed actually is that the 12 inches away from all your units is an interesting stipulation because it means if you're like outside of 9 but within 12, you can't afflict them. Just
Yeah,
period.
yeah. There's this really weird like dead zone, like especially when people are
Yeah.
like staging behind the walls in the middle. It's just like, this is weird. You just kind of like stare at each other like, okay, this is a thing. I
Just,
don't know why it's there, but it is.
I guess it's because they're trying to imitate the idea of it being like artillery or something.
Yeah. Oh, also really annoying. That one is it's done at the start of the battle round, which makes it way worse if you go in second because you
Oh
just
yeah.
tell your opponent which 2 you're picking, and they're like, cool, I'll just not expose them anymore. Because again, you don't have flavor scrolls anymore because it's too expensive. So they just hide
Yeah.
those 2. It's like, cool, I literally don't have an attachment.
Yeah, that doesn't feel great.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's not ideal.
So I guess the next one, Champions of Contagion. So this is, what is this? You get to
This is
choose your play, build a bear.
yes. So you get to choose your -1 save, -1 to hit, -1 to see every battle round. You get to sort of like flicker between them.
Mm.
It's all about characters. All the stratagems require characters to be in squads and to be led, and they're pretty good. It's kind of an elite detachment because obviously the caveat is that everyone requires a character, which makes units just naturally more expensive. But there are some real good gems in here. It also has one of the most fun enhancements in the entire game called the Final Ingredient, which is basically a mini game where your Bios Fire takes the enhancement, Final Ingredient, and it doesn't do anything at all. However, if at any point his unit kills an enemy character in combat, basically he goes up to the enemy's dead body and goes, "That's what I needed," and like pulls off his like I don't know finger or something, puts it in a vial, gives it a shake, and now you get to pick a second contagion for your entire army to have for the rest of the game. So you can have -1 save, -1 to hit permanently all game. It's really funny. So it's one of those when it goes off, it's really really powerful, but you have to hunt down a character. But it's very funny when you play against something like Angelic Inheritors Blood Angels, where as a character in every single squad, because it's the same sort of thing where so like characters and just like you're like go, he's got like a captain with 5 assault intercessors and just like go on, send him in, charge me, I dare you.
Have you ever had like have you ever like taken that enhancement and run into one of those lists where it's like one character holding the home objective and no other characters?
Oh yeah. Then you're just like, oh.
Yeah,
I
my
also run
point.
against knights, and for some reason that counts. Like I don't know, maybe did the oil, I guess, or like a spring. And it's just like you just kill a knight, you're like, yes, we got him, boys. But it just gives you that like hype moment when you kill the thing and you're like, I did the thing. Which is really really fun. So that is probably the coolest enhancement that is available in probably the entire book. I think it's the most fun one. So that's really cool. But it also just has ungodly damage. It requires a lot of command points. This detachment, but you can give any squad crit 5s and 4 rolls to hit and wound for 3 command points. So you can take 6 Death Shroud, a lot of contagion, charge into Summit. Now you've got a bunch of damage 2 and damage 3 attacks at AP 3 because of -1 save contagion. With lethal sustained lance, crit 5s, 4 rolls to hit and wound. The 6 Death Shroud and a lot of contagion, if you do the sweep attacks into a Catan, has enough damage to overkill it twice.
Ugh.
Yeah, it's very funny. So it is the ultimate. Your friend is bullying you with a Catan. Here you go. Go teach him a lesson. But
I
it
guess
also gives you access to T9 stuff as well, which is +2 toughness as a stratagem, which is a very funny stratagem because it's very different. In like, it's the strat's either amazing or does absolutely nothing. You get struck by strength 10, does nothing. Like you're still being wounded on 3s. But if they're in that weird strength 8 break point, and normally they wound you on 3s because you're toughness 7 Terminator or 89.
No.
It's like effectively -2 to be wounded. So it's great when you run into people who's like, what's your weapon? It's like, it's a power fist. You're like, oh boy.
And then you run into someone and you're like, what's the strength of your weapon? They're like anti-infantry 2+.
Oh, yeah, that's normally our thing, to be fair. But yeah, it's a very fun detachment, but it's definitely on the higher end of things. Plus, we get no end of fun at the channel because it abbreviates to cock. So we like to say whipping your cock out.
Of course it does.
Of course it does. So everyone's list is some form of euphemism of that, as you can imagine. Yeah, it's incredibly fun though. It has the most fun enhancement, and also just means that you get to see your units souped up and supercharged. Because if there's characters in there, you can just do all these cool little weird things. It also has like the most useless stratagem in the entire game in there as well, which is if you have a character that's not in a squad and he's near a squad that he can lead, you can pay a command point for him to join them.
Sick.
Yeah, I mean, why wouldn't he just start the game in the squad? I guess. Yay! Like the idea, obviously, being like, you know, some guy's had his entire squad wiped out and he's on his own now, and he's like, "Please help me, save me!" And you just happen to have 5 unled plague marines in an army that requires them to be led to do anything. So why are they there?
You could be like,
go and save him.
You could be like, my taliban is done tallying. Get in there.
Yeah, it's game time. He pulls down his mask. It's like it's game on. So yeah, it is incredibly fun. It's very very easy to make a mistake because everything's so expensive because the characters it can snowball away from you very quickly. But it is very unmatched in terms of damage output in our book. It has horrific potential to deal damage to the opponent. And it's got some cool things like fight first on demand as well for Plague Marines and things like that. But honestly, the final ingredient is the thing that makes that thing just an absolute blast to play, because you just get to hunt down your opponent's characters and just be like, you make one mistake and I'm getting double contagions all game. It's fun. It's definitely fun.
It's always fun when there's like a mini game within the rules.
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
Now I have to ask, because we were just talking about the Plague Surgeon. Is this enhancement for him any good?
So the problem is it's not even D3+1, so the enhancement is just you resurrect D3 at a time. So there's a 33% chance it does nothing.
Nothing. Yeah.
You just resurrect one guy. There's a 33% chance you get an extra guy, and there's obviously a good chance you get 3 guys. But the problem is, what you're giving up to get him is like the crit 5s guy with lethal and everything, the sustained hits, Plague Caster, like even the Lord of Poxes gives you like 18-inch loan up and has a decent melee weapon. You're giving up all this stuff to resurrect potentially 3 guys, or maybe just none, or just 1. And the other problem is that Plague Marines, even for the toughness 6, be able to T8, again, this attachment is very good, they are still relatively squishy because they're free up save, no invulnerable. I'm sure you've experienced how easy it can be to kill 10 Space Marines.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a good chance that the second you tell your opponent, hey, this guy can res up to D3 a turn, they're just going to make sure if they go to kill it, they're just going to overkill it so the entire thing's dead. So there's a good chance that even then you don't really get the value out of it. So it's definitely the best way to play a Plague Surgeon, if that makes sense.
Not a high bar.
I don't think it's worth it. But yeah. But it's definitely something you can do.
Okay. I guess the only other caveat I'll say reading through this is the 3 CP combo you were talking about earlier. I think technically we can't do now, because it's if you're on UKTC you can't stack, and with 11th they've announced that you can't stack strats now.
Yeah, so in 11th you definitely can't, which is a big hit to that like detachment's like potential to output. Now you can get Plague Marines to have biology putrefied, so they have crit 5s anyway natively. But yeah, the Death Shroud combo is done. So if you do want to ruin your Catan friend's day, do it sooner rather than later, because it does. Yeah, it sadly will hurt that detachment's not strength, because it is. You know, it still does a lot of damage. Crit 5s is still great to have. 4-rolls is still great to have, but you can't get to the C levels of damage that you currently can, where you basically just one-shot anything in the game. So, which is probably for the best.
Yeah. I mean, it's clearly kicking your friends when they're down at the Blank Catan at the moment. They went up 15 points.
I know, like, honestly, will someone think of the poor Necron players? Oh my god. Honestly, they might sell their armies at this rate.
Don't worry, guys. Next slate, I'm sure they'll drop Wraiths by 10 points again for no reason. No, I like to bully them because they quite often get random buffs, but they're fine.
Yeah, just like, hey, here's your equal. They get the the equal attention cake as much as Space Marines do. I swear. It's like Imperial Agents, like, please remember we exist.
And army rule anything.
Meanwhile, Necrons, who wants 10 points off Raves?
Now, if you want to know something really specific about agents, there's a strat in that codex that's been in there with this wording for about 2.5 years now, and there's a strat that doesn't work because of how it's worded.
Oh, nice.
Because it's 1 CP, fallback, shoot, and charge, or fallback and shoot, but it says until the end of the phase, and because you use it in the movement phase.
And they can't even bother to fix. Great.
Yeah, they haven't fixed it. It's been like 2 years.
I'm starting to think Imperial Agents was a bit of a scam to make people buy a book for an assassin.
Yeah, I really wish that was. I really hope they go back and do something. I mean, they released a new character for it. They got the guy on the weird alien horse thing, so maybe they'll do something.
True. Maybe this is the turning point.
Yeah, I'm just let me just hit a inhale of my copium. I can dream. I have the army, but
a man can dream. Man can dream.
Oh, I didn't realize how many of these there is left. Okay, let's have a look. We've got Champions Contagion. Is that it?
Just the champions then. So we've done champions, Hammer, and Vivi. So
yes.
We've got
3 more. 2 more.
Yeah, 3 more.
Okay.
So
we've done champions.
Which one do you go for?
So it's Taliban Summoners.
Taliban Summoners is the demon detachment. It is very. So I'm just going to focus this again. Hello, focus, please. The Taliban summons is very underrated, very slept on. It's the only attachment where you get to bring along some Nurgle demons as well. But that means you can bring great unclean ones. So there's a great list where you can just bring three great unclean ones, Morty, just all the T12, T13, and just be, hey, here's a bunch of chunky boys existing. But the actual best part of it is there's a sort of balanced list, which is it's very toolboxy. Because it has access to a enhancement which changes the entire way you play called Beckoning Blight, which gives a character a 12-inch aura of demons can deep strike and charge within six away from the enemy. So
Oh,
you can build,
so
yeah.
it's the demon's rule. Gotcha. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So it's a 12-inch aura of the demon's rule. And then you got to bear in mind, Death Shroud can already do that. So you can have this entire army built around 6-inch slash 5-inch deep strike charges because Plague Bears get +1 to charge. And it becomes this entire thing of like the Taliban summoners just like sneak around the board turn one, and you're like, I don't get what's going on. And then 6 Nurglings start on the line and just jail you straight away because you have a command point stratagem to, if a Nurgling squad dies, it instantly goes back into reserves. So if you get first, you just move, block them. They all die. You pay a command point, and then turn 2 just slow it down again and do the same again. Especially if you bring in your Death Shroud character first, who can let the Nurglings arrive 6 inches away from someone so they can go in again. So it's very much board control-y. You've got Rotagus as well, who makes people -1 OC 2-0 as well, if possible. So he's really good for like controlling primary. And it's just this entire list of 6-inch possibilities, and everything extends contagion range. So if demons are near Death Guard, the demons get contagion. Death Guard get better contagion range. So people normally pre-measure you out, but there's so many things that could happen. So I mean, you think about the chain reaction that could potentially happen. You measure my movement plus 6 inches away. You think you're safe from contagion. Suddenly now, my Rhino advances forward. There was no demons near it. He's now just outside of contagion range. I deep strike in 3 Nurglings within 7 inches of my Rhino. Extends the contagion range. Puts them in contagion range. But now, the Death Shroud character can come within 6 inches of that stuff, and he's got the enhancement for Beckoning Blight. So now the demons come in a layer back into the middle of your army from 6 inches away from other things, and it just cascades really quickly out of control. And it's just this really funny like chain reaction of, oh, that's annoying. Oh no. Oh god. Oh god. And it just gets worse and worse and worse. And then again, while you're still being jailed, while Rotagus is making your natural objective OC0 all the time and existing on it with his T12 booty, it's really fun to play, and it's super underrated. And if you like demons, like I 100% recommend it. But it is really about Beckoning Blight, a bit of jail, bit of control, but it's also just the option to just bring a bunch of fat guys and just be like, hey, I like Great Unclean Ones and Mortarian, have fun with that. So I think it's honestly probably a top 3 detachment. I think it's top 2, to be honest. I think Virulent Vectorum and Taliban are the best ones in terms of competitiveness. But Taliban requires, whereas VV, as I said before, it's your salt and pepper chicken and your bread and butter. You can just play it and sort of understand it. Taliban, you need to like play it. You need to like understand all the potential combos and lines that it can do. And if you get the hang of it, it's crazy powerful. If you don't know what you're doing, you're gonna just be a bit lost with it. But it's not like crazy scientist level. I'm not sitting here thinking I'm Nostradamus or something. It's just requires you to do it a few times and you go, oh, okay, I can see how it can now chain together to make things happen. And the good thing is no one plays Taliban, so every time I come to the table, I'm like, I'm playing Taliban. Do you know what it does? And my opponent's like, no. I'm like, good. I'm going to explain it to you. You're going to forget it all, and then it's going to happen, and then you will never forget it ever again. Yeah, it's very fun, but it's very tricksy, very toolboxy, and very fun in that sort of aspect.
So there's a few different things I'm noticing here reading this. Number one is the aura radius for the buff is 7 inches because of, for God's sake.
Yeah, Nurgle number is fun.
Nurgle number is
funny.
Be.
Nurgle number, funny Nurgle number.
I remember the other thing is I remember like there was people I talked to when the codex first came out, or when the new model came out. Was it Lord Poxes, the guy with the big sword?
Yeah.
Because his thing makes his contagion 3 inches larger, and then when he's near a demon in this detachment, it can be a max of is it 15 inches?
There's no max, but yeah, you get to 15. Yeah, you can go 15 inches. Turn 2, you can have a 9-inch aura, which is silly. Because he can also take the enhancement for the 12-inch aura of Deep Striking Demon 6. So you can have this guy that's just like, I set everything up. He's like, I walk out on my own out of a Rhino. I move 8 plus D6. I've got a 9-inch aura on turn 2. Or like you said, you can wait to turn 3 and have a 15 potential inch aura. And just be like, cool, everything's now in contagion. By the way, here's demons. By the way, here's Death Shroud. go. It's really funny.
Yeah, he has a fat circle of stank. He let one go.
Literally, he can be Stank Supreme Lord. He's just come back from Taco Bell and he's ready to unleash.
I guess the last thing I noticed is I was reading through the rules as you were talking about it, and you were like, "Oh, 3 great unclean ones." I'm like, "You can fit 3 great unclean ones in under 1,000
Oh yeah.
points. Why are they that cheap?"
We used to be able to get 4 in because Rotagus used to be 250 points. So
Oh
you used
my
to be able to
god.
3 great and clean ones with 250 and then Rotagus for 250. But they made Rotagus 265, so now we can only fit in 3. They ruined
Oh,
it. They ruined it, but it's still a
shame.
lot of chunk. It's still a lot of chunk
That is
to
a lot of
deal
chunk.
with.
It's a shame you
It's a
can't
lot
get
of
many
chunk.
Morty in here as well, but I guess you can run the regular version of that HD if
Yeah,
you
you
really
can
wanted
regular
to.
version just to have the feel, no pain. But it would be very funny if you could get it all in there. But yeah, you just make. I mean, I want like maybe you could defiles are 250 points. Maybe we can go
Oh my
3 great
god.
unclean ones, 3 defilers, a mortarian, and then just go all the chunk,
Well, I
all
mean,
the big 130, 140. Sorry, 140 and 160 millimeter bases.
oh
Yeah,
god.
all the chunk.
I guess you could just pair a defiler with a great unclean one and have them walk in pairs up the board to give each other
Oh,
the
they can
aura
hold
and just have
hands.
maximum
Yeah,
aura size.
they radiate aura at that point.
Circles of stank.
Literally, just call the list pie plates.
It's a shame the Nerdling strat respawning them is once per battle, because that's one of the ones where I feel like that wouldn't be that broken, because it is just Nerdlings, but...
I promise you it would be very broken after doing it to people. You
Oh,
don't want
okay.
that. I'm telling you right now, you do not
Okay.
want that.
Maybe I'm wrong. I know it got nerfed
It's
ages ago because of other things like guard, I think, wasn't it, at the time, but...
yeah, it's just the combination of the guy with the aura because you can just move him in, move block, die, come again 6 inches away, charge in, die, do it
Ah,
again, die, and
yeah.
so you just never be able to leave. But I get what you mean. They're not like they don't hit at all. They
They're
don't
not
deal any
scary,
damage. They're
but
just
I guess
no,
it's
they're just
the screening and
the
being
annoyance.
annoying, yeah.
Yeah, if you don't have fly, it's an absolute nightmare.
Okay, well, I mean, it sounds like you enjoy this one. It does look quite fun to play, which is nice because a lot of for the Chaos books I've covered so far, a lot of the time the demon detachments haven't been that great. The only exception being the Zinch one recently got some changes and they buffed the data sheet. The Lord of Change, that one is a lot better than it was
No,
when that
oh
one came
no,
out.
our demon one's fantastic. Our demon one is genuinely good.
Okay, is there anything you would like look at and change here, or is it very you're like, yeah, I'm happy with this one?
Honestly, I think it's brilliant. I wouldn't change anything in this one. I think the strats are all funny and have unique plays. Like maybe the reroll all hits could work for both Death Guard and Demon Infantry, and not just be like Demon Infantry only. Sorry, Death Guard Infantry only if they're in combat with Demon. It's a little bit restrictive. I would rather it just be rerolls to hit in combat because it's not the craziest thing with those units. You know, Plague Bearers rerolling hits is not the scariest thing in the world. So I would like to see that change. But yeah, part of that no, it's pretty good.
Okay, so let's talk about zombies.
Zombies.
Zombies,
So
Shamble Rot.
literally, so Shamble Rot is basically a bit of a trap again. Not because it's bad. Famrot's actually pretty good. But Shamble Rot, the initial thought everyone sees when they play Shamble Rot is just windmill slam in 6 squads of 20. Just slam in 6 squads of 20 and then have 120 zombies plus the 30 you get for free from the detachment rule. And now you got 100 zombies, and that's it. That's the list.
It's funny.
Actually, does yeah, it's funny. It's not very good. What actually has been better from when we've been playing and testing it in terms of competitive is one big brick of 20 with Typhus and some enhancement to give them like OC2 or extra toughness and things like that. But the zombies work better in just 10-man squads and just using them like roadblocks. Just here's 10, you can't get past them unless you got fly, and then here's another 10, and then I bring in one from reserves because they have a stratagem to deep strike unit of zombies as well. So you can just put out constant roadblocks, and then I found the best way to play this, and which managed to win an event with, was all these zombies. So the list was called it was something like 100 zombies and 14 tanks. And it was just it was guard literally with zombies. It was here's 14 tanks and a bunch of walls of zombies. And the funny thing is, there's a stratagem that also lets you use the zombies as a meat shield. So if someone shoots my tank, I can instead take the damage on the zombies, which is really funny to just like you can't even like shoot your way past the zombies. You have to like kill the zombies first to hurt the tanks. But it's just constant waves of zombies, and it scores really really well because it's just. Again, you get three squads of zombies that can all deep strike for a command point. So you're constantly scoring things just here, there, everywhere, zombies. And your tanks are like, no one wants to trade into zombies. No one wants to have to send out, even 5 jump assault intercessors. That's still like a 95 points into 65 points a pox. You're still losing. And I've got
Mm.
9 squads of the things. You probably don't have 9 squads of assault intercessors. I mean, you're probably cheating if you have that many. But it becomes really hard for you to do it. Like, the best feeling I've ever had is going against Custodes, and I'm just like, all he's got is like 3 massive bricks of like wardens and shield guard. I'm like, here's 65 points in the middle objective. Have fun with that. It's like having to send out 300 point squads to clear them and then getting shot to death by all the tanks. It's just rinse and repeat because they can't fly, you can't get past them. So it's just complete board control, and you just have to, it's really good for teaching you about playing the game on a more mission focused way, because you're constantly thinking about these zombies are just assets. You're not trying to protect. A lot of people get very protective of the units. They don't like their own models dying. If you play Imperial Agents, you'll know like they're there to die. Like they're
Oh,
there to be sacrificed to move block to stop people getting where they want to go, and it's really good for teaching that. You don't feel bad because they're just zombies, so it naturally clicks in your head that these are disposable zombies. So you throw them out there, you let them die. It's just great fun. And you also have a very funny enhancement, which I love, called Sorrow Siphon, which basically gets a plague caster, and you bring some zombies with him as a threat. And they can go in a rhino as well, the zombies. So I put one in the rhino. And every time he shoots his flamer, you basically load the zombies into it like an ammo belt. So D3 zombies just die,
it's
but he
like an
gets
orc
+1
weapon.
damage. Yeah, so he has D6 +3 shots auto hitting at strength 6, AP 2 damage D3, but now it's D3 +1, so minimum 2, maximum 4. And you can just get out of a rhino. If the rhino shoots, it gets 4 rolls to wound as well. It auto hits. You get potentially 9 shots. You can overwatch. It works on Overwatch as well. So I had a Grey Knight's Dread Knight charge me. I was like, I've got 1 zombie left with me because he shot him. I was like, cool. I'll sacrifice him to charge the gun up. Overwatch, and I think I did 12 damage to it in Overwatch. I was just like, huh. This is really funny. It's just like cool, casual 60-point dude with a flamer doing an immense amount of damage because he's just feeding zombies into the belt. So that's very fun to play with as well. It's also nice to have Typhus in there because Typhus obviously is like the zombie guy, and he
Mm.
does do well in the detachment because he can be joined by another character inside the zombies. So you can have him inside the squad of OC2 zombies, and then anyone he kills with his psychic attack respawns zombies. So you can have, you've took some losses, you zap someone, you resurrect zombies on an objective now and steal that away from the opponent. There's all cool like things you can do like that. But at its core, it is board control, completely about primary denial, primary objective. And again, just teach you a different way to play than killing. But I mean, not that it can't kill. Obviously, 14 tanks tends to kill things, surprisingly. But I feel like, again, the initial problem with this attachment is just the design. And 100%, if you want to do it and you're a narrative, a casual player, 100% slam 150 poxwalks on the board. I'm never going to tell you not to, and that's very fun. But in terms of like competitiveness, it can be done competitively, but it just goes a bit of a different way, where you think where it's more about the 10-man squad of zombies just being taken on mass rather than the big bricks of 20 zombies. But it is surprisingly effective, very surprisingly effective.
Hmm. I guess looking at these enhancements, there's obviously all thematic on characters. Are you attaching characters to the 10-mans then?
So I attached the guy who feeds them in like a machine gun onto a 10-man, just because they're just an ammo belt. That's all
Yeah.
they're there for. So they go inside a rhino, and he just drives around. He disembarks, loads them into his gun, and shoots them with 4 rolls to wound, which is funny. And the other one, I have one 20-man brick. So I just have one 20-man with Typhus and the fellow that gives the bellboy. So they get +1 to advance, move, and charge. And they also, with the enhancement, get +1 OC and get to have +1 to battle shock. So it's leadership 5 zombies, which is really weird. But it also gives them
Ooh.
OC2, which is a nice little combo. But outside of that, all the zombies are basically just mindless walls for me to run at someone. And also, the fun thing is, the contagion, they have a strat where if they're killed in melee, whatever killed them in melee, you spend a command point, they're basically covered in the guts. So they're constantly in contagion range for the rest of the game. So you can send out 10 zombies into the middle, they come out with melee, kill it. You don't even have to worry about sending out contagion next turn to tag them. You just pay a command point, you go, cool, you're in contagion. Tanks, kill.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds very fun, to be fair.
I was very surprised at how much fun I had when I took it to the event. I was like, this is going to give me backache. It's probably going to be boring. And then by the end of it, honestly, I don't know if it was me having fun or if it was me feeding off my opponent's frustration, but both were enjoyable.
Yeah, for sure. I don't have to. I mean, it sounds like most of these like it's hard for me to scrutinize this one too much because a lot of it's just going to be stuff to do with the zombies. So it's really hard to say, oh, this one isn't very good because it's all going to be silly stuff that zombies do. Uh,
The only problem with it is the strats ain't great,
yeah.
but you don't play it for the strats. You just go ha ha funny free zombies, battle line zombies, ha ha, and then just support it with a bunch of guns. Like the strats are like you're never gonna. The problem is like they have the strats given +1 strength, +1 attack. It doesn't
Mhm.
matter. Zombies deal no damage. +1 strength, +1 attack does not change the fact they hit on fives. Like it doesn't make them suddenly good. So you never use stuff like that. So I would have liked to have seen like maybe an enhancement that lets a character that normally can't join zombies. Like Lord of Poxes. Like again, it's in the name, Lord of Poxes, Pox Walkers.
Mm.
That would have been cool. So then you could have like an 18-inch lone up squad, and maybe for that enhancement because it's only on zombies, maybe it could change it to 12-inch lone up because it's not it's zombies, it's not got guns, it's not shooting you back. It would probably be fine to be 12-inch lone up. Which would be cool because then it's also like if someone charges him, you actually got some damage dealing in there to hit him back with that big sword. So I am a bit. I feel like it could be ways to make it more fun and more enjoyable, but the best way to look at it if you're playing it as like a list of competitiveness is just like take all the zombies for just bodies and screens and back it up with guns. But the actual stratagem suite and stuff in it is actually kind of meh, if I'm being honest. Like absorbing stuff for your tanks is pretty good. Like damage for that's pretty good. Deep strike is very good on Poxwalkers. That's brilliant. That can
Yes.
stay. But yeah, it's like the damage increase ones. Like there's no point having a damage increase strat to go on a unit that deals no damage. Like I never got like when you see like, oh, use this stratagem on a cultist unit and it gets +1 to hit. Like, mate, it's shooting strength 3 auto guns. It's not doing anything.
Yeah, I think that deep strike one I'm actually surprised isn't an enhancement. Usually when that's that kind of effect, it's usually like enhancement on guy, give 2 or 3
Yeah.
units deep strike. Um, I'm also very surprised that unless I'm reading this wrong, there isn't a strat that's like respawn a squad. Because
Yeah, that
you
was
think
a
that
bit
would
of an
be
odd
here.
one, yeah. Yeah,
Um,
you reckon that would be one. Especially because of the really cool one in Corn Demon Detachment where it's like pick an enemy infantry unit that's just or an enemy unit that's just died, spawn 10 bloodletters near it. That'd be sick if you could like kill an infantry unit and just be like, rise
oh, that would
and get
make
like
sense
10
actually.
poxwalkers. I
Yeah.
would love to see that. That'd be sick. Because
Well,
again, the 10 poxwalkers, they don't really like it's not broken because they're not going to then charge and kill another squad. They just annoy you. They just tag things. Wouldn't be as broken as 10 bloodletters then suddenly charging and killing something.
yeah.
But yeah, I
Or,
think that it is a bit of a miss on the stratagem front.
or like an enhancement that like you put on like any Death Guard character that just says when you kill something a unit with this model spawn a Poxwalker squad.
Yeah, like literally just give it the Poxwalker rule. That again, that would be also be good because then again you can take, if that also let like call it like Shepherd of the Undead or something, let it also give a character the ability to join them and then get the Poxwalker rule. Then that would be cool because you can take a Lord of Contagion who has 10 sweep attacks. So you walk into 10 guardsmen, sweep, kill like 8 of them, and there's you go eight more zombies. That's really cool and thematic and fun.
To be fair, I was also thinking like slap it on like a Demon Prince or something. And
Oh yeah, that also
like
be
Demon
sick.
Prince like swaths through a squad of 10 guys and they just stand back up.
That'd be I'm game for that as well.
Okay, we've got 2 left. So Death Lord's Chosen. We
Yes,
briefly touched on this. This is the Mortals one, right?
yeah, so this is the Mortal Wound one. It's got a very funny sort of mini game with that. Outside of that, it's all about Terminators. It all requires a Terminator keyword. Um, and this it would be a good detachment if it had a single defensive stratagem, which for an army all about Terminators is very weird not to have. There is no defensive stratagem in here at all. Again, it would really like that -1 damage or +2 toughness or something like that. But
Mm.
outside of that, you're just an army of 2 up 4 ups and you basically pray you make 4 ups because if you don't make them, Terminators start dying. But outside of that, it does have some very cool bits. So you have uppy downy once per game for an enhancement. That is actually incredibly scary when you have 6-inch deep strike and charging Death Shroud Terminators. That is something you need to be careful of. Whoop, whoop, charge, kill something, pick it up, go again. That is actually really powerful. You've also got Vile Vigor, which lets you have +1 movement and reroll advances for a squad of Terminators. You put that on Blightlord Terminators with all their guns and they shoot really hard. There's a strat to give you Assault, so now your 6-inch move can reroll the advanced roll and for 1 command point can still shoot. So you can have potentially like 12-inch moving Terminators shooting with really good guns. Like that's actually pretty good. I ran that. That was very, very good. Surprised a lot of people how much damage that thing does. Um, but outside of like the enhancement wise, there's like a usual, melee battle shock enhancement, things like that.
Yeah.
But in terms of like stratagem suite, They're okay. Like there's a very funny one where it's like tank shock for Terminators on a 2-up. Now
Ooh,
very funny. It requires Terminator unit keyword, not Terminator model keyword. So if Typhus joins 20 Poxwalkers, they can use the stratagem and basically just roll 20 dice and a 2-up do a mortal wound for each one. It's capped at 6, thank God.
that's quite
But
funny.
you basically guaranteed 6 mortal wounds, which is very funny because you can't 1 inch off the wall Poxwalkers either because their base is smaller than an inch. So you know that old trick people send an inch off the
Yes.
walls, they can't be charged.
Yeah,
You
the
just send in
25 mils.
Poxwalkers. Yeah.
Yeah.
You send in the Poxwalkers, you spend the strat to tank shock and do 6 mortals, which will then kill a squad, kill a guy at least, and then Typhus can then pile in through the gap that just got made through the wall, and then he can swing, which is really funny. Catches a lot of people out that. But yeah, so it's funny to just like elbow drop someone on the wing with Terminators. That's always funny. They can reroll hits versus infantry only, which is weird because if Death Shroud touch most infantry, they're just dead anyway. The weapon skill 2, so it's like, you know, I wish it was like real ones to hit and wound would probably be better because then you get a bit of, you know, bit better against vehicles. I'll just let me use it against vehicles so I can fish for lethals.
Mm.
That would be nice. Then oh god, what even is that? There's the classic pick a unit and extend contagion range, which is always nice to have, especially in this one where that contagion now affects and does mortal wounds, and it can set up your, you know, units of Death Shroud and things like that to come in
Mm.
from deep strike. So that's nice to have on a stick when you do need it. I think, oh god, what even else is there?
There's one here that's a Terminator unit gains assault and heavy.
Yes, so that's the one that I like to use with the assault with that enhancement. So you can move up, shoot. Heavy is the worst keyword in the entire game.
Oh yeah.
Who stands still these days? Like, come on, no one's standing still. Like, this is a Terminator detachment, which means it's all about like pressure, like to be on your opponent into their lines, because you're not going to win trading wars, you're not going to win objective gameplay because you're all elite Terminators. You want to get in there and smash someone. So if you think for a second you're going to stand still, and the worst bit is like it can only be used on Terminators as well. Yet out of our 2 Terminator units, one of them, the Death Shroud, only has flamer weapons. So they'll never use heavy because they never stand. They don't roll to hit. So there's certain stratagems like that one which I wish was just any Death Guard unit, because maybe I could make a point to have like a defiler or something stood at the back, just, you know, long range fire support,
Yeah.
and it just stands there and shoots away while the Terminators are all being aggressive. But thankfully the assault keyword stops that stratagem from being garbage, because the assault, and again, it's only really with the enhancement that makes it great, because you're guaranteed like on average a 4 on your advance because you can reroll bad roll results. It just keeps them mobile, keeps them shooting, and keeps that pressure on the opponent. So that is
Mm.
actually pretty good, to be fair. That's the saving grace of that one.
Okay. So I guess we can just hop over to the last one. I guess it sounds like, I mean, you mentioned earlier the lack of defensive strats. It, like, reading through these, it
Yeah.
seems like a lot of these are very proactive stratagems, which isn't necessarily always a bad thing, because I think reading through these, you've got like a fight on death, you have the mortals, you
Yes.
have reroll hit
Kind of stuff like
rolls, assault, contagion range. Like, none of these I would say are necessarily bad, but they're all like semi-overlapping situational things.
Yeah, it's just like sometimes you just need to be able to bounce and attack. Like even if that was like our one source of our AOC equivalent, like, you know, like rust covered armor or whatever you want to call it, you know, ROC, whatever you want to call it, that would also be good. Just some way to make your Terminators just stick around for a bit longer, because there are games where you just, you know, we've all had it. You got a 4-up invulnerable unit, you get shot by the weapon with the perfect damage to wound ratio, you know, flat damage 3 into 3 with infantry, and you just botch all the 4-ups, and now you've just lost the entire squad. And the problem was that because this detachment requires Death Shroud a lot, because it's a Terminator detachment, and you want the Terminators and Lord of Contagions, these were 2 of the units that were spammed and abused in that degenerate Mortarian's Hammer playstyle. So the Mortarian's Hammer list that went up 500 points because it was broken actually caught this one in a bit of a side swipe, because the average DLC list, which was no way near broken or, you know, ruining the game, went up on average like 300 points just from catching strays on its Death Shroud and stuff, and it really didn't need it. It was
Mm.
completely fine. Again, goes back to me saying I wish they'd have fixed the hammer rule rather than nerfing all the units in it, because our points needed to go up 100%, but Death Lord's Chosen did not need 300 points put on it. It maybe like 100 tops. Like, that thing was fine. But again, that's the problem with a detachment based system where we don't, you know, units are better in certain detachments than others. So now we've got a dead detachment and a severely wounded detachment as a casualty of war, really, which is a bit unfortunate.
Yeah, there's like rumors going around to do with 11, but I won't touch too much on those because I don't know what you're privy to and what like anyone's showing you. So I don't like to go on rumors too much for these. but we'll see what they do going forward. I'll be interested to see that. So I guess the last one
Yeah.
we've got is it flyblown? This one to me always seemed quite interesting, but I don't know if it's actually good or not.
Yeah, so Flyblown was nerfed heavily. So Flyblown was looking to be amazing. So Flyblown, when it came out in the index, was the one that didn't have the -1 save, -1 to hit, contagion, etc. So not having that made it initially just terrible at index compared to normal index,
Hmm.
because you gave up way too much for it. What
Yeah.
you gained was scout and everything, and stealth army wide for infantry, which is actually good. Like that is a fine rule. There's nothing wrong with that. Then the codex came out, and they put that army rule, sorry, they put that detachment rule on the army rule. So now Flyblown can get -1 save, -1 to hit, and things like that. So we're like, okay, Flyblown's cooking, because Flyblown actually has some good stuff. Scouting all the infantry, you get 6-inch piling and consolidate, which for a slow army is huge for movement speed boosting. You've got -1 to be wounded from having a blight hauler nearby from a stratagem, so you can be -1 to hit, -1 to wound on infantry from shooting. So a lot of tech
Hmm.
going for it to make it sort of a strong anti-shooting list. Poxwalkers could now infiltrate as well, so Poxwalkers could infiltrate with scout and -1 to be hit. I was like, okay, that's kind of nutty. You know, start them on the line, then move up and move block really straight away, or you go second, you move block, moving behind a wall. It's like really cool. I was like, okay, you know, Flyblown's really got some gas now. Flyblown's looking really, really good. And then within 2 weeks, they came out with an errata which removed any of the Flyblown rules working on Poxwalkers.
Hmm.
So they lost Scout, which I was completely fine with. Like that 100% needs to happen. But they also lost Stealth, which I don't really understand why, because they had
Right.
that the entire time Flyblown existed in the index and it wasn't broken. -1 to hit is a good debuff, but again, this is on a unit that has no save and just a 5 feel no pain. Like, it wasn't hard to kill them even with stealth. And there's a lot of things in the game with bonuses to hit, rerolls to hit these days.
Yeah,
So
that one seems odd to
it,
me because the army rule kind of applies -1 to hit anyway if you take that. So like it's not like they won't have it
yeah,
anyway sometimes. So that's an interesting one.
exactly. So it's like, was it really that oppressive? But because they lost that, and then basically the problem as well is the Death Shroud got reworked, because Death Shroud could start on the board in this attachment because you had the scout and then you had 6-inch piling, so you could bounce around the place. But now, and that was back in Index when Death Shroud had a terrible rule. It was like, oh no, it wasn't terrible. It was -1 to be wounded if the strength was higher than toughness, that old thing,
Hmm.
which is pretty good for durability. But now they've lost that and they've gained the 6-inch deep strike. So you have a unit which is the best one to make use of like 6-inch piling and consolidate, but its data sheet rule is telling you to put it in reserves, but the detachment rule is telling you to put it on the board.
Right.
So you get contradictory. And as we said before, Plague Marines aren't durable enough to walk, even with -1 to hit. They're
Yeah.
just not. So they always go in a rhino, and the rule specifically says if they go inside a transport, they lose scout, so you can't even scout your rhinos. So what is supposed to start on the board? The Blightlord Terminator is like the only thing that gets
Yeah.
any use out of this, which is okay, but I'm not going to take a detachment rule to affect one unit. And like, yeah, stealth is always on everything else. But like you said, if you really wanted -1 to hit, you could just take the contagion for it as well. Because it used to be the contagion used to be -1 weapon skill, ballistic skill, so it did stack with the stealth. To be -2 to be hit from shooting, which is really good. Whereas now it doesn't do that anymore either. So it was almost like a death by 1,000 cuts, this detachment, and it's
Hmm.
really fell down in power. So it's still viable to a degree because Death Guard just has good data sheets and it still has some good strats. Like again, -1 to be wounded, very good strat. 6-inch power and consolidate can win a game quite literally if you do it correctly. But there's just, you look at it and you just go, why would I run this over VV? Why would I run this over champions? Because it's a lot of rules that are fighting against each other, where you can just play Virulent Vectorum and have just a load of rules that help each other. It's a weird one. It's very strange. And it's just been left in this weird limbo. And I wish they'd come back and just be like, yeah, Poxwalkers can have stealth again. Because then I'm like, okay, cool. At least Poxwalkers getting some benefit from the detachment now. So it's not just Blight Lords who get the use out of it. And I think the
Hmm.
idea was that the Lord of Poxes, the new character, was supposed to make it a lot better because he gives the squad Lone Up 18. But yeah, I don't know if you've played with Lone Up 18 compared to Lone Up 12. It is night and day difference. Like those 6 inches actually really matter. Like it's very easy to get within line up 18. It's very hard to get within line up 12 at times. So you can't start Plague Marines on foot to make use of the scout. You don't want to put Death Shroud on the table because then they don't get to use a 6-inch deep strike. And if you don't use a 6-inch deep strike, they don't have a data sheet rule.
Hmm.
They just don't. So you just, again, it's just everything about Flyblown is like, it was strange to say because they said that all these they were designed with like forward integration with the codexes, but flyblown very clearly was not because all of it's just non-bow after non-bow.
Yeah, it's an odd one. Like, I think when I first saw this come out, my immediate reaction was, oh, maybe you could do like a Terminator stat check kind of thing, where you just go, here's, I don't know what squad numbers they come in, like sixes or something, or sevens, uh, and just have a bunch of stealth Terminators was like an
Yeah,
approach. I saw people being like, yeah, maybe we could try that. But I guess, yeah, the whole deep strike thing makes it weird. Um,
yeah, that is the one thing that makes it work is you can do 18 Death Shroud with, access to always be -1 to hit from shooting and -1 to hit to wound. The problem is it has no defensive stratagems for melee matchups at all. So again, maybe it's better in teams in that sense that you try and put into shooting matchups, but
mm,
against melee it doesn't do anything. Like you scout towards the melee army, okay, you've got stealth. World Eaters don't really care; they're not going to be shooting you much. Maybe the defiler now, I suppose. But but outside so many defilers. But outside of that, it's just yeah, it's hard to recommend it over anything else. I do feel like this is a detachment that was left behind.
yeah, I mean, I know something they've talked about with the release of 11th is the idea of them allowing some detachments that are coming in future to sort of combine rules, and maybe that's something that'd be interesting with this kind of thing, where it's giving a buff to a
Yeah,
certain type of unit. If they allow
this
that,
is a great detachment for that because this is. I don't know if you've seen the rumors. And again, I don't want to get into rumors because
yeah,
I always say if we talk about rumors and they don't end up being false, we just talked about nothing for like 10 minutes or whatever it was. But I will say on this one, there was a rumor that like each attachment's getting like a points value, and you
mm,
build your army. It's like if it's a really strong attachment, it's full points. You don't get to mix and match it. This would be a great one to be some like a pseudo detachment because
mm,
it does only buff a select amount of units, infantry only. That isn't in transports on the board. So it's not, and excluding poxwalkers. So it's already just niche there, and like one of the strats requires a very specific vehicle. It only needs a blight horde to get -1 to wound. So you also, as we said before, you're forced to take a unit now to get use out of that as well. So
yeah,
it's a weird one in that sense where I feel like it could work better in that modular way of building armies, but like as a standalone, it doesn't bring the drinks to the party. Let's say that.
there's an interesting scenario for this where maybe they plan so far in advance that we don't even know it, and that maybe
Oh, they're playing
well,
chess
yeah.
while we're still playing checkers.
Yeah, well,
Oh,
because they might have been planning for 11th in mind, and maybe the 11th edition release for Death Guard is a new infantry unit that uses this really well because it's not a deep strike unit.
oh, don't. I've avoided like plague havocs for so long. Please give me plague havocs. Make it happen.
Give them some vomit guns.
Oh yeah, got some long range vomit spewer. Like, you know what? They should give it an indirect keyword. I'm sure that would.
I guess that'd be a good way to round it out, actually. So, what would coming into 11th? What would you like to see for Death Guard?
So coming into 11 for Death Guard. So I will say overall, I am still majorly happy and hype. Like Death Guard's in a great spot. Going forward in 11th edition, I would like to see the plague surgeon be viable for the first time. Just let him give a feel no pain, please. Let him be a surgeon.
Uh,
But
Best I can do is it reses two models.
ooh, now that's 100% more efficiency. um, no, but if I'm like going to like into the series, I still enjoy the fact that we are going into a more disease debilitation playstyle rather than just being the durable faction. So I hope they lean into that even more. Where like I'd love to see like damage over time mechanics, things like that. Just anything that's like plaguey is always just going to be amazing and just fun to play with. I like the mini game esque things like. I I I would love to see like a detachment where maybe like we get like some like use that detachment where like tokens and they can spend like battle focus for Eldar, but
Mm,
instead it's like plague. So you could, at any point in your turn you can spend a token to pick a unit, an enemy unit that's in contagion range, and give them like a flash outbreak of a certain disease. So maybe it's like -2 to be charged this turn, or can't use stratagems this phase. Just something like that to like just on the spot, bam, debilitated like that. Because I think that would be quite fun to like to manage like your contagion points, and then maybe as you said, you could have like enhancements where now if you kill someone, you could roll a dice, maybe on a 4-up, you manage to extract some essence, and now you get another plague token that you can spend next turn and things like that. So I'd love to see some more like because Death Guard is still fairly basic to play at its core. We have some tricks with mortarian stuff, but it's an honest Warhammer army. That's what we see between. I play Death Guard and Votan both of them have been nicknamed the most honest armies in Warhammer because we don't have reactive moves, we don't have uppy down. Like we have a reactive move, it's just attached to a 380 point Primarch on one unit. that's near him. So like when you play against Death Guard, like we don't have access to assault, we have no advance and charge anywhere. Assault's very limited to like stratagems. So it's very honest. It is where it is on the table, and it does what it does. So, and that is great in a way because I think it really teaches you the basics very well of playing the game. But it can lead to a little bit of staleness sometimes. So I would like to see more mechanics that are Death Guard and Nurgle themed, where it's like plagues and debilitation and pestilence, but give us a little bit more decision making to make rather than just being like stage here, contagion spread here, next turn, things like that. I'd love to be like, right, that person's doing this thing. Like, you know, you said in Eldar play, it's like, do I want a +2 move or do I want to ignore Overwatch? Like, you get these decisions to be made. And I would like to see that incorporated more so the army becomes more dynamic, but without losing the flavor of Nurgle. I'm fine with being slow. Slow is fine. Like, I don't want fast Death Guard because that is not Death Guard. I would love to just see us be made more dynamic in a way that fits us, not just giving us, you know, plague doctrines and now everyone can advance and charge this turn, everyone can fall back and shoot this turn. I want to see it done in a Death Guardy Nurgle specific way. Also, durability wise, please just make sure every detachment has at least one defensive stratagem because you are Death Guard. Like, I know you don't want to give us the army wide durability back, but just having it there would quell a lot of people's feeling of not being tough. Just being able to go, this turn, this unit is tough. Like it would make a lot of people feel a bit more like, again, that Death Guard, that resilience, just to have access to a defensive in every single detachment. Doesn't have to be an amazing one. It could like AOC, it could be -1 damage, it could be, you know, +2 toughness. There's loaded with different ways to make durability be higher, but just a way to allow Death Guard players to have that moment of being that, you know, that guy that shrugged off the las cannon, even though that's not really like what happens, but just so they can feel it for that one turn.
Something I like to throw in actually is quite often when I'm talking about like flavorful things that armies can add, quite often I point people to the boarding action stuff. I don't know. Have you looked at boarding actions for Death Guard?
I actually haven't, you know. I probably should, to be honest.
So
Is it go and spoil me?
okay, so the army rule, I think there's usually there's an army rule and a detachment rule, but like sometimes they change things and they limit the types of units you can take because it's infantry only basically. So if I look at like, oh my scroll will just die, that's great. So the first one in there is Vectors of Decay, and their army rule in that is smaller radius because it's like hallway fighting.
Yeah, of course.
And it's 1 inch on turn 1, 3 inches on turn 2, and 6 inches on turn 3 onwards. But the detachment rule for the first, like, air quotes, index one for that mode is 7-fold offerings. For every 7 enemy models that have been destroyed, add 2 inches to contagion range.
That's cool.
And it just keeps going.
See, that's what I mean. Like, let us stack tallies. Let us build, you know, build diseases. Let the diseases get worse as more death and more things happen. Like, maybe you can have an attachment where the more units that are in, so more Death Guard. So, like, if one Death Guard unit's near, that's -1 toughness. If there's a second one there, it stacks something else on. So it's like the more plague you're around, because then you're trying to kill it and keep it, you know, contained. Whereas the more like we manage to get on top of you, it gets worse and worse. So I mean, there is many ways to make it cool and thematic and fun on the table, and I just hope they go down that path and lead into it more.
So like, I guess the second one here is same army rule, but then their like detachment rule is all their consolidation moves are D3+3, but they can't end within engagement range. So you move faster towards like infected stuff, but you can't get into combat with them that turn.
That's cool. So it's just like this inexorable wall, like constantly moving towards you.
Yeah,
it's like that's what I mean. It's like speed, but in a different way. So it stops that feel bad of them being able to get into combat and tag you and stuff. But it is that, oh god, they just keep coming.
Oh, it must do it in any direction. Oh god, okay, that's terrifying.
But
that's yeah. I always like pointing at boarding actions, so it's quite a funky mode. It's actually a really good mode for people to learn the game because it's very basic. It's you have this list of set things you can take. So, for example, if I look at that first one, it's one of up to the following characters. There's 5 different characters listed. Up to one of the following units, it lists one of the and that sort of secondary, more generic characters, and then up to 3 of the following, which are Death Guard, cultists, plague marines, and poxwalkers. Because it lets you use the generic cultist data sheet, I guess. I don't know how that works.
Oh, yeah. Bring it back.
Yeah, bring it back. I mean, you've got poxwalkers, I guess. It's better than average children have.
True, very true, very true.
All right, I think I've run out there because we've just gone past the 2-hour mark. If you've managed to put up with us this whole way through and have seen Aiden's slow descent into darkness as it's turned to night behind him and he's now in front of a black background, please go check out his podcast, Discussing Resilient. I'm sure, again, it'll be down below somewhere. And likewise, please come check out my stuff. I've talked to a bunch of people like this and about various different armies, and they're all very, positive and like talking about their favorite thing, which is usually their army. I almost said last words, but it sounds like I'm going to murder you or something.
Any last words?
Any last words?
No, thank you very much for having me on. Obviously, if you're from my channel, make sure you check out the other ones of this series. They're very, very good. And check out some of these other Imperial Agents, because if there's someone out there giving Imperial Agents love, it's this guy, and they need it. They could do with some love.
Oh, God. All right.
But no, yeah, if you want to check out any more Death Guard content, check out our channel. We stream literally like twice a week, and we have videos going up. And yeah, like, it's honestly, it's a bit like this. Like, it's not a standard competitive where we just sit here, it's like, well, this is the list of the week. Well, actually, it's not that efficient. It starts like that, and it degrades to this where we just yap.
We do like yapping.
We do enjoy a good yap.
All right. So thank you again for getting this far, guys. If you have, so comment down below what your smelliest Death Guard model is. Okay, we'll see you guys later.
Dangerous game you play, sir.